took a gun out of a holster and he pointed it at my head and he starts to quote the Quran, and then he said, I've been sent here to make an example out of you. And in that moment, I thought God was hurting us, but he was actually holding us, right?
And when you are hosting or entertaining, you never know, you might be entertaining angels. Wow.
So my story is not about like Iran and Islam. I'm a product of biblical hospitality.
Hey, it's Rich, and you're listening to the Mature Me podcast, weekly content devoted to all things life, leadership, culture, and faith. Thank you for taking some time to tune in. Make sure you subscribe and follow us on all our social channels so you don't miss a thing. Let's listen to today's episode.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Mature Me podcast. My name is Rich Wilkerson Jr., and wherever you're at in the world, thank you so much for taking some time to tune in. Would you do us a favor right now? Would you like, subscribe? Would you leave us a comment? All of those types of things kind of help us get a pulse on what's going on in your life and getting good feedback around here. It's been so fun to watch this community continue to grow. And we do this week in and week out because we want to see you mature. We want to see you become who God's called you to become. And the way that we do that around here is through long format conversations with really interesting, incredible people. And today we have a phenomenal guest. He is an old friend of mine. I say that often here on Mature Me, but it's very, very true. We go back well over a decade. And we go back even before that. I don't know if I even told him, but I'm gonna share it in a moment here. But really, he's probably no stranger to you out there. He is a husband, a father, a leader, pastor, writer, author, speaker, influencer, all of the things. But I'm talking about my old friend, David Nasser, is here today.
Come on, old friend.
Good to see you, my man.
How are you, buddy?
I'm doing wonderful. It's been too long.
You don't age. You look younger.
You look better than ever.
I look a lot older. You look a lot younger.
That's you hanging out in 30A, man.
Come on.
It's that Florida sun, man. It's that vitamin E just
sun.
hooking you up, brother. You been well?
I've been really well.
You look great. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
The reason why I said we go back even further is because when I was in college, maybe I've told you this before, but I read a book called Call to Die.
Yeah.
What year did that come out?
2020. It's celebrating this year its 25th anniversary. So yeah, it's getting reskinned to be re-released for its 25th, man.
It's 25th.
Yeah. You were in high school when you went through it?
I got it when I went to Lee University.
Yeah.
What year was I there? I was there in 02 to 07.
Okay, those years, yeah.
So my friend Micah, who was my roommate or my suite mate, it was sitting there on his desk. Because I'm trying to think, the cover is it the Crown of Thorns?
Yeah, it's on the Crucified Life. It's a 40-day devotional. So you fast in the beginning from something time-wise to carve out the time to be consistent, and then you kind of progressively go through this 40 days of devotional reading and then journaling and stuff. So,
how old were you when you wrote that book?
It was 25 years ago. I mean, I wrote it in a year. I felt like God gave it. It's an interesting story. I was at an event, and we had a bit of an altar call moment where people were coming forward to give their hearts to the Lord, and it was a Hot Hearts event in Texas, and they needed extra counselors. So they were like, "Hey, can anybody help?" So I go back there to help. And I sit across this 15-year-old, teenager, and he's kind of telling me what all's going on. And as he was telling me all the things that was happening with his life, it almost felt like he was giving me a loose manuscript of like, this is the stuff I need past this event, you know? And so I went home and it kind of put him, on the front and thought, what would I write for a 15-year-old who's new in the faith? Has excited at an event that I get to be a part of. We've all been, VU conference. People walk out of those things. They're just like, I'm going to win my entire school of the Lord. I'm going to start doing this. And there's all this emotion. But so how do you help them, become more devotional-like in their faith? And so really with this one teenager in mind, we started writing this book. And it was built around this idea of like, how do we help them grow progressively, like in the basics of their faith? And I felt like God, and then I was at Passion Conference, and Beth Moore on a morning session said the words "call to die," and they dismissed everybody. And I sat there and I started journaling about the word "call to die," and that's where the title came. And then when we went to go shop the book, Nobody wanted it. They were like, no one's going to read a 350-page devotional that is called A Call to Die. How very Iranian of you to have a book called A Call to Die. And so I was like, what do you mean? And so no one signed it. Part of it was like, I was a nobody. Nobody cared. And bro, that little self-published devotional is well over 250,000 people that have gone through the fast in the last 25 years. So it's just been humbling to see how God's put it in the life of people.
It marked a generation. I mean, it discipled an entire generation.
Yeah, it's just humbling to think through it, and just to see how, and people fast through it. And then people always, so often I'll have people come and say, man, that book changed my life. And then I'll go, oh, tell me about it. And then they don't talk about the book. Like, really, the book gets out of the way. It's not a great book. It's about the fast. So often I hear from people like, that book marked my life. Well, tell me about it. They're like, man, first time in my life that I gave up TV for 40 days. And I spent time with my kids.
Yep.
And I would like hang with my kids in the backyard. And I can't tell you what. And I was like, oh, okay. So it wasn't the book. It was just spiritual concentration. It's the idea of fasting, right? It's like feasting on God and fasting from the world. And so that's been the blessing of the book. And,
it's so beautiful. Funny enough, in January, I always start the year. I think I'm 6 years in now. I did this little thing called Wilderness Week.
Yeah.
It sounds harder than what it is, but it's a little campground in Georgia that I would take a few buddies.
Yeah.
And it's really a time of solitude prayer. We hike. It's very programmed, regimented every hour on the hour, starting at 6 a.m. to the evening.
Yeah.
And we always have a resource that we're reading. And this year we read Bonhoeffer, The Cost of Discipleship.
Come on.
And the famous line in that, I mean, there's so many bars that he writes into that book, but, Christianity is the bid to, come and die.
That's right. It's the first sentence in the book, Rich. And last Thursday, I was with our common friend, Scott Harrison. I was at his
he was just here.
Charity Water Lab, which is in the factory in Franklin. And Scott is just like, he's taken over Nashville by storm. He's the mayor, bro. This guy's moved in and just like all the goodness that Scott Harrison is, just the leader that he is and the contagious, like just the magnetic force that he has. So last Thursday at his Charity Water Lab, he brought in Will Guidara, invited just some buddies, about 30 couples, to come be together. And so I had to preach Thursday night. So I get done late. I mean, I'm just speeding. I get there, catch the last few minutes, and I'm standing in line to grab, a piece of cake, and this guy behind me walks up and he says, "Hey, bro, we've never met, but he says, I teach at Fuller Seminary online." He goes, "I live here." He goes, "I do a couple of stuff." He goes, "I teach at Fuller Seminary online a course on Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And when I was 16 years old, the first time I ever saw the words Dietrich Bonhoeffer is I opened up A Call to Die." And he said, "Bro, I read, when Christ calls a man, he bids him come and die, Dietrich Bonhoeffer." And I was like, this must be a misspelling. What is this German word? He said, I looked it up. He said, today I teach a course on Bonhoeffer. And so it's crazy how the Lord has just used that German theologian who stood his ground, in the midst of all that was happening with Nazi Germany. And so then he was like, he just presumed I knew about Dietrich Bonhoeffer. I knew that quote. And so he starts talking to me about
telling you all
it.
these background
and
stories.
Like, and then, when he was in Berlin and and I was just nodding yeah, of course. Of course when he was in Berlin. Where else would he be? I had no idea. But and so it's amazing that quote was even pivotal for you in the beginning of the year.
Oh, it was just, it's kind of interesting. Yeah, just because I had always known about the book, but then I dove into it in January. And then also just things about his life. You kind of know little quibs or tiny little
Like
stories.
what stuck out to you?
Well, I mean, just his radical nature.
Yeah, like bring it on. Yeah.
But like what's that whole idea that like, history doesn't repeat itself, man does. You know what I mean? Like we are in these cycles. And so he's living in a cultural moment. So much of what shaped him. Yeah. Like if I can recall, they call him like a theological prodigy. I feel like his doctrine, when he got done with like his doctrine thing, I think his teacher said something like, this is a theological masterpiece. Some kind of like crazy superlatives. But when you find out about his family, like he was kind of raised with like geniuses. I think his dad was a famous psychiatrist. Wow. His uncles, maybe his uncle worked with like Einstein, like really smart people. Wow. He gets called into the ministry. He ends up going to, I think it's Union Seminary in New York. And when he's there, he writes back about like, the theology's not that sharp, but what changes him is I think he's in Harlem, if I have this right, and he goes to like a black Baptist church.
Really?
And in so many ways, the soul and the spirit like draws him in.
Bro.
And he is so shaped by it.
Come on.
And what he really learns from them is like social justice, that these people are like, they're fighting back. Their theology is impacting the way that they're living in society. So when he goes back to Germany and he hears about this guy named Hitler's rising up and what's happening, he's like, we can't just sit here.
Yeah.
Well, he kind of begins to fight back. He ends up getting safety, going back to New York, and people at Union are taking care of him. I don't think he makes it more than 30 days staying there. And he's like, I can't escape this.
Wow.
I have to run to the fire in it. So when you start to kind of figure out the steps that he was taking about like, he actually could have been removed, but he said, I'm not going to be removed from this. I'm going to actually engage in this. Those kinds of words of when he's writing, The Cost of Discipleship hits you so much deeper, because you can write something, but to live it, that's where this potency comes from. And so I think for me, I was just taken aback about how this man was drawing a line in the sand.
Sure.
And he's like, I'm going to stand for this.
Yeah,
And
man,
what's
courage.
that old quote? If you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. Yeah. And it's radical to a point that like you're reading it very, very convicted. And him taking Jesus at face value on everything, you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And those are the heroes of the faith.
Woo.
I mean, when we get to heaven and we get to meet Dietrich Bonhoeffer,
jeez,
heavy German accent, we just give him a bear hug and say, bro, you inspired so many of us to stand. And honestly, like most of us aren't going to be at the end of a spear like the martyr church, or most of us aren't going to be, it's not going to cost us our lives or be imprisoned. It's like some of the things that Bonhoeffer went through. But the call to die for you in January, the call to die for me every day of my life, the crucified life of like, man, it's not about taking a bullet. It's harder than that, actually. It's about like just waking up today and just dying to myself.
Amen.
As a husband, as a father, as a friend, dying to myself in the way that I would treat the lady at the hotel, at the front desk, when she's checking me in. And so we just looked at those people, man, as the heroes of our faith. That's one of the best things about Christianity is we have so many amazing heroes of the faith.
So many heroes.
So many people we can look to and go,
that we can,
well done, good and faithful
we can
servant.
draw inspiration and we can emulate. And, I think when I consider that, like it's always it's healthy perspective.
Yeah.
Because I think we're stronger than we know, and our God is better than we know.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to continue to be reminded that living here in America in 2026, this is great, great privilege, but there's a whole lot of people that have sacrificed and laid their lives down so that we could live in that blessing. Today, I think it's really, really awesome timing, the way that this is all working out. Anytime getting to chat with you would be awesome. But I think in the cultural moment that we're living in today, with particularly this war that's taking place in Iran, I love the fact about your own personal story. And I think there's a lot for us to gain today and learn today, because I think we are living in a very interesting cultural moment, what's taking place in the Middle East, and how do we here in the West, how do we relate to this? What should our thoughts be?
Yeah.
How do we pray? How do we respond? It feels like there's landmines everywhere we're walking through in terms of people on both sides of every kind of bit of the story. But I think you are uniquely positioned right now in this hour because you were born in Iran, and you yourself, your whole entire testament of coming to Christ. I want to lean into that today, because I think that as we just look into your personal story, it's also going to help us for the moment that we're finding ourselves in. But maybe just take us back a little bit. Mature Me, we usually tell people's origin stories. So I was like, bro, you got to have to tell us a little bit about your upbringing and coming to Christ.
Yeah, man, more than happy to. I was born in Iran, like you just said, and for the first 9 years of my life, that's where we lived. And then when I was 9, in 1979, the Iranian Revolution happened, 47 years ago. And so I remember those days really well, Rich. I remember, honestly, people are sometimes surprised when I tell them, I remember like a very cosmopolitan Iran. It was very westernized. I have memories of cafes and fashion stores and being at the park and watching, because we were picnicking as a family, watching college kids hold hands and kiss and walk around like they do in anywhere else in the world. And so it didn't feel like the images you see of Iran today.
Yeah.
But then the Ayatollah Khomeini and his religious zealots kind of took over the country. And he went from a monarchy where we had a king that reigned and ruled to a theocracy. And when that happened, when, basically religion took over the governance of Iran, they as a part of the revolution, decided to kill everybody who was anybody in the old regime to kind of stop resistance against, themselves. And I remember my father in those days just when you're 9, they're not really confiding in you. I remember my father's just spirit being very different and knowing in our army base, in our home, that something was happening. So about a week, 2 weeks into the revolution, I remember going to school one day, and we went to a military school in our army base. And as soon as we got there, they called us out behind the school. We didn't have like a gym to meet in, and everybody was out back. And a soldier was standing in front of our school, and he, when everybody quieted down, he got a piece of paper out of his pocket, and he read the name of 3 students, mine being the first one. And he said, "Hey, I want these 3 students to make their way to the front." And I made my way to the front, and before the other 2 kids could come, I was like the first one there. And the guy that was there, the soldier, took a gun out of a holster, and he pointed it at my head, and with his hand just kind of shaking, he starts to quote the Quran, and then he said, "I've been sent here to make an example out of you, to kill you." And I'm confused. Like, I'm a 9-year-old kid. I don't know what's happening, but what I understand now is that they were killing everybody who was anybody. And because of who my father was, they were using terror, fear, to, trying to make an example of someone like us so that other people wouldn't rise up against them. And the school principal got between me and the gun and started to weep and said, "Please don't do this. Come back another time." And the guy kind of turned around and walked away, and they rushed me out of there. I never made it inside the school. They put me in a car, and they drove me home. And I think word got out to my dad because, like, soon after I got home, my dad got home. And I remember, Rich, my dad sitting me on his lap, my military, like, larger than life, alpha dad. And he was just crying, and he kept saying, "I'm sorry that happened. Don't worry, you're not going back to school." And he told me that day, that was the first time he told us, he said to the kids, he said, "We're getting out of here. We're getting away." And in my mind, somebody had quoted the Quran and it said God had sent them to kill. So in my mind, I thought, oh, we're getting away from God. Not getting away from these soldiers, but I thought, I don't know what we've done to make God so mad. But apparently God's angry at my family. And we got to get as fast as we can, as far as we can away from these people.
Is this already 1979?
This is right past, in the middle of 1979, yeah. So the government's being overthrown, everything's happening, and in our army base, things are happening like that. There's just a lot of turmoil.
And then how soon are you guys out from that regime takeover?
So that afternoon that happened.
Yep.
And then we're sitting at home for a few days. Like, we're not going to school. And I'm watching my mom and dad corner up, and they're kind of figuring out how to get out of Iran as fast as they can. And before we could even plan our escape, bro, I remember soldiers coming to our home.
Dear God.
And dragging my dad out of the house. And I say dragging, not because my dad was fighting him, but because my mom had her hand wrapped around the leg of one of the soldiers. And so she was getting dragged on the floor as they're taking my dad out. And my mom kept screaming, just loud, "Just kill him quickly, just kill him quickly." And my first memory of prayer in my life, we weren't super devout as Muslims. My mom was, but I just don't have a lot of prayer memories. But my first memory ever of prayer was when they took my dad out of our home. My mom got my sister and I together, and we sat right in front of our front door. And my mom held our hands, and she just kept praying. And it was the same sentence. She just kept saying, "Let him die quickly, let him die quickly." And I remember just thinking as a kid, why are we asking God to kill Dad quickly? And she explained to us after she said amen that our dad's best friend, who was another army leader on the army base, the day before had been taken to a park, and he'd been made an example of. And they had taken a pair of pliers and started with his fingernails and worked their way in. And so we were praying that my dad would be spared, torture and just be killed quick. And so, bro, when you're 9 years old and you're asking God, if you're going to kill Dad, can he at least die quick? The last thing you think is, God loves me and has a wonderful plan for my life. And so I know not a lot of 9-year-olds think stuff like, I hate God. Most 9-year-olds think stuff like, I don't know, should I eat this crayon or whatever? But I was 9 and I thought, I hate God because I felt like he went first. I felt like, I don't know what we've done, but everything we know that is stable has become unstable. And now my dad's dragged out of our home. But bro, 2 hours later, my dad came home and he wasn't killed. And he said, we're putting this on front burner and we're getting out. And
why was your dad even taken?
Yeah.
You guys were Muslim. Help us understand that a little bit in terms of
the government was being overthrown. The guys that were in charge in
so it
the
didn't even
army-
matter that they shared faith, because I feel like the new regime that was coming in was a theocracy, and it was, everyone's got to be Muslim. They didn't
was.
care about that. The fact that
but the Shah, who was the king, he was no longer there. Then people under him were no longer there. And my father was high ranked in the military on that army base. And so people like 9 levels down in the pecking order were all of a sudden, on top of everything else.
So it's just
And
like in any revolution, they're just taking out. It doesn't matter if we have the same faith. It's like, you're in a place of authority, and we're the new authority.
That's
you
right.
got to go.
And so we need to make sure whoever's up there is one of us, right? And he might be, this guy was loyal to the king. He served the king. So, it's just that moment where the streets are bloody and people are dying, and everything you've lived a fairly sheltered life, and then just imagine like everything that to be stable is unstable.
And your dad gets back, he's like, we're getting out.
Yeah, he got back and he said, this is going to go even faster. And they figured out a way. My mom at that time, Rich, was going through some heart problems. And so my dad goes to the doctor, the cardiologist that my mom had been going to see, and he brokered a deal with him. He said, look, we need to get out of Iran. And so if you and your staff will help us escape from Iran, we'll leave all our homes. We own multiple homes in Iran. We'll leave our cars. We'll leave our bank. We can't take any of it with us because people will find out. But if you'll help us escape, you can have all of it. And so the doctors got in on the plan, and my mom, a couple of days later, acted like her heart was bothering her. It was all fabricated. And this ambulance came in the army base, and that's where we lived, in this housing thing in the army base. And they took my mom to the hospital, and they took her in this back room, and they came out and they said she needs emergency bypass surgery, and we don't have the technology for what she needs, and we need to have her go immediately to Switzerland for this operation. And so, bro, we bought 2 airline tickets like we were going and coming back, and called in for the house sitter like we were going and coming back, and, got the homework assignments, but we weren't coming back. We're running for our lives. And I literally remember going to the airport and holding my dad's hand in the airport, and his hand's just shaking, and he's saying, like, if they find out we're escaping, we're going to be killed right here on the spot. But what's crazy is, this, you look back in hindsight at your life, and in that moment, I thought God was hurting us, but he was actually holding us, right? I thought he was the one who was causing but he was actually, it's Isaiah 41:9 and 10, where he says, I took you from the ends of the earth, and from its farthest corners I called you, and I said, do not fear, for I'm with you. I will help you. And then he says, and I will hold you in my righteous right hand. I look back and go, and that wasn't just a promise to the people of Israel. Ditto. Look at your life. How often God has held, we deserved his wrathful left, and he's given us his righteous right. And so I look back now and see how no one found out we were escaping. And by the way, we were doing dumb things, desperate times. We weren't thinking. My parents had stuffed some jewelry in my baby brother Benji's carriage, and they had lined this one piece of luggage with some money. And it was dumb, because if they'd have found it, we'd have been found out. But in God's grace and sovereignty, man, we just weren't found out. So we get up in the air, we land in Switzerland, and the ambulance gets by the plane, and instead of my mom being put in the ambulance, my mom sits up and says, all of this was fake. I don't need to go to the hospital. We want to go to the American consulate, and we want political asylum, which is just a fancy way of saying we want to become refugees in America. But at that time, nobody was allowing people from my neck of the woods into your neck of the woods, because there's a revolution going on. And people are watching on TV how Iran is burning the American flag, calling America the Great Satan, how they've held 54 Americans hostage from the American embassy in Iran. And so we're from the wrong place at the wrong time.
Isn't that movie
that
they made, Ben Affleck's movie? Is that it? What is that called? I'm thinking about it, where they faked as movie producers.
My mind just went,
Anyone know what that is?
I've seen it.
It'll come to me in a second.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about, right? That's all during
That was
The
during
revolution.
That was,
yeah, that was all
right.
79.
And so it was so that movie kind of gives you a window into just the tension of how, you had all of these people. As a matter of fact, bro, you came multiple times. You were such a favorite when I was at Liberty as a convocation guest. But I got to tell you, one of the guests I'll never forget was I had in my home at dinner one time the Marine that was one of the hostages in Iran.
Stop.
So, there was no one military except them. Everyone else was just a worker that was held. But there was one Marine, and that Marine's daughter went to Liberty. And so we're sitting at dinner in my house. You were in my house, remember? Like, we're just having long, fun dinners.
Best nights
We're
of our
sitting
life.
there, long dinners, and he's talking about being held as a hostage in Iran. And he's like, if you had told me then that my daughter would one day be under the campus pastor of Liberty, who was an Iranian, and I'd be having dinner with, like, only God.
Only.
Right. So anyway, so we get there, we pled for political asylum, and nobody was allowing us into America. As a matter of fact, that's when everything was froze up. President Carter was, the hostages were happening. The price of oil was going up. It was just a lot of the murmurings of what you feel now.
Sure.
With this second moment.
And do you have siblings?
Yeah, our family's back in Iran.
I'm saying you.
My sister is 4 years older than me.
Okay.
And then my brother Benjamin was younger than me.
So there's
and
three
he
of
had
you.
Down syndrome. Yeah.
Well, okay.
So we were stuck in Europe for 9 months, and we were trying legally, illegally, everywhere we could to make it, and the doors just wouldn't open.
What
up.
do you remember about that time?
The 9 months that we were there.
Yeah, and you're in Switzerland.
We were in Switzerland, and then we were told that the American consulate in Munich was more sympathetic to our cause.
Okay.
And so we went there and we were just pleading our case. And I remember just feeling sad. I remember feeling down. I just remember as a little 9-year-old, like thinking in one sense, like it's weird, bro. Like when you're 9, I remember being sad that I left my Legos. From the lens of a 9-year-old, I remember like, so we're not gonna see. My mom was mourning, I'll probably never see my sister again. I was mourning my $6 million man action figure. I was mourning the fact that like everything I knew
was gone.
We were being told we're not going back, And so there was that, and then there was the fact that we were broke. So we lived in basically like project type housing, and for 9 months, and we were not from a cool place. It wasn't like we had all these people wrapping their arms around us and showing hospitality.
Was there any other Iranians around you in that time that were in that area?
I don't remember many, or if any, during that time. But what happened was there were some people that my father knew, some American military people that my father knew that started advocating for him.
Okay.
And so after 9 months, one day God just opened the door and we finally were able to come here. And I remember getting on a plane and thinking, man, I hate religion because I saw it destroy everything we had. But man, we're coming to America and this is going to be the new day. And we landed in Killeen, Texas. We were like the one family that didn't move to Erangeles, But we end up like not in New York. We go to
Killeen.
Texas.
Military base. I've been there.
Fort Hood, bro.
Yep.
So
Fort Hood, I've been there.
Biggest army base in the world. Patriotic Texas. Iranian family.
Oh my goodness.
Parachute in. I mean, wedgie waiting to happen, buddy. You know what I'm saying? Wrong haircut, wrong clothes, wrong everything. I'm like, hello, I am David. And they're like, dude, you are so going to get beat up today after school. And I got called bean dip every day, and I'm not even Mexican. I was like, you're not even accurate in your racism, And we'd escaped, honestly, from one part of the world to escape one kind of terrorism, physical, and come into a whole other kind, emotional.
Yeah.
And you know this, man, the weapon of mass destruction for emotional terrorism is not so much the mean things people say. That's mean enough. It's when they don't even acknowledge that you exist as a human being. I just remember the hardest days being when there would be 16 birthday party invitations for the skating rink, and there's 17 of us in the classroom. Like when you're always picked last at every sport, when you're always the kid not invited, when you're always the kid who's, walking home, when you're getting bullied by the kid who's getting bullied by the bully, you're just thinking, I thought we came here to be refugees, and this doesn't feel like a refuge to us. And so that was me for years, and we eventually moved from Texas to Alabama.
What did your dad start doing for work?
He would just do whatever somebody would do. He tried to become he was a helicopter pilot instructor. He had all this training, and he was a very competent leader.
Yeah.
But at that time, nobody wanted to hire him, like because he was from the wrong place,
Sure.
military town. And so for a minute there, we actually he found a job with Bell Helicopters in Alabama at Fort Rucker, Alabama. So that's what moved us to Alabama.
Okay.
But that didn't last long because they just came to him and said, "You're qualified, but these guys don't want to be, coached by an Iranian." This is before political correctness.
Yeah.
People were saying like, "This is who we see on TV."
Yep.
That's, burning our flag and calling us the great Satan, and yelling death to America on our television sets. So my dad was just a hustler, man. He's opened up a rug shop that would do photocopies in the front, and they started framing things in the back, like custom framing, and it's just that work ethic, that Middle Eastern work ethic. Like, you got time to lean, you got time to clean, and my dad just began to in the state of Alabama, began to work his way through like one profession after another, and little by little, just sweat equity, bro. He went to lower middle class, to middle class, to upper middle class, and all along, in one sense, we were living the American dream because so much opportunity was afforded to us. But in another sense, I was this outcasted kid who was always eating his lunch alone, always the kid who just didn't blend in, and I remember the day before my freshman year in high school was about to start. I was sitting in my room and I was crying, and my dad heard me, and he comes in and he said, "What's wrong?" And I told him, I said, "Dad, we've been here for years. We've moved a couple times, but things are going better for you. And I'm so glad that's happening for you because it's certainly afforded us a better life." But I said, "But Dad, you got to understand, I'm going to high school tomorrow, and this is not going to go good. Like, I'm always the loner, nobody ever talks to me, this. And my dad felt sorry for me. And so he tried to fix it. And he put me in the car and he drove me to the mall. And that's the day that my dad gave me this kind of extreme makeover on the outside. Same insecure kid on the inside, but I got made over on the outside. And I got new clothes, new haircut, new shoes, new stuff. And I went to school the next day. And I went from, I call it geek to chic, Abdul to Julio. So like I found out what so often people will accept you more for the label that you wear than the person you really are, And that's like rooted deeply in me. As a matter of fact, I was seeing a counselor, and he was like, I was talking to him about like how I like nice clothes. I don't like to pay for them. Like everything I'm wearing, like literally everything I'm wearing right now, I get at the Unclaimed Baggage. I don't know if you know this place.
No, tell me about it.
Scottsboro, Alabama. You of all people, because I know you love you and Don Street. Unclaimed Baggage is all the lost baggage in the world ends up in Scottsboro, Alabama, basically. And they unpack it and they sell it for nothing.
Stop.
So like I got these shoes for like $85.
Stop. I gotta go
Everything.
here.
So it's all unclaimed. This might have been your jeans, back when.
I'm missing those.
Anyway, so I was talking to my counselor about it, and he said, "Why do you think?" And I said, "Man, I think it was just a way to cope. It was a survival thing, Like sometimes I'll tell jokes in inappropriate places because this is how I survived getting bullied. Humor, it's how I dealt with like being the kid nobody wanted to be with. I would just
trying to fit in,
doing anything,
trying to
insecure, and so latching on to those things. And so I say that to just be very transparent and say like those are the things that nurture and nature kind of shape who you are. And for my high school years, all of a sudden, because I was wearing the right stuff and I learned how to dump the right girl before she could dump me, and how to be cold to people to be perceived as cool to people, and how to end up at the right lunchroom table. I just learned how to play high school. And my high school years became the years where I on paper, kind of things flipped. On paper, it felt like I'd made it good on life. But at least when I was a nobody, Rich, I was David the nobody. But all I'd really become is just this fabricated version of somebody who didn't really have real friends. We were just playing high school. It's so true where it says in Scripture, "What good is it for a man to gain the whole world but to forfeit his soul?" And that was me. The Bible says in Romans 12:1 and 2, I know you know it, you preached it, like, do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. This idea that, like, we're supposed to deviate from the patterns of this world. Tell that to a kid who's already completely deviated.
Yep.
And he's going to do whatever he can just to make a friend, even if it's a fake friend, And so tell that to a lonely, lonely kid. And that was me. And so through high school.
Were you Muslim at that time?
We were Shiite by heritage.
Okay.
My mom was more devout. My dad was kind of devout at times. But I was just this kid who learned, and my high school years became the years where I just partied.
Okay.
My parents were very busy doing life.
Yep.
And my dad at this time was being more and more, he was more and more successful. And he had opened up a restaurant, a French restaurant.
Wow.
And he was kind of again, just entrepreneur,
Yep.
and he was busy doing all of these things. And my high school years were the years where I just learned how to play high school.
Yep.
I learned how to throw big keg parties. I learned how to
Yeah.
end up with my buddies and,
You were surviving with a projection of going, this is where I can not become left out. I'm included
right.
this way, but I'm included for all the wrong reasons. You don't actually know what's really going on. I'm not even sharing or having enough wherewithal to explain who I really am or what I'm going through. I can imagine as a young guy, I mean, those are all very, very traumatic things to leave your house at 9, to be locked in Europe for 9 months, to finally get back, to move to America, to Killeen, and then to these are not like, I love Texas, and I love Alabama,
it's not
by the
South
way.
Beach.
But it's just
It's
it's not what you see on
metropolitan,
TV. I mean, this is in many ways probably real America, but probably not whatever you would have thought about it. What at that time, because I imagine there's got to be some identity crisis going on. What were your thoughts at 15, 16 years of age of Iran, of being from the Middle East? Do you resent it? Do you hate it? Is your dad coming home complaining about the good old days? Does he hate Iran? I'm kind of curious about that because I think all this kind of brings us to where we're going to get to in a moment. But like, what was that?
Podcast, I think 17 in the last 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And no one's asked me that. I love that you asked that because more than the circumstances, you're talking about the humanity side, like what's going on in the soul of a human. This question you're asking me, but I don't think no one's ever asked me that, and I love that because what you're asking is like, what does it look like to be 18, to be 17, and completely insecure, and there's a part of you that's always at the receiving end of like 7-Eleven jokes and turban jokes. And what's the dot on the forehead? Cable hookup jokes, right? And you laugh along, and you're not really from a place like this is some of the unspoken things of culture here. It's like there are countries you're from, and it's cool. It's cool to be French.
Yep.
It's cool to be Italian.
Yep.
It's cool to fake you a Australian accent, mate.
Come on.
And ain't nobody going, oh man, that Iranian accent, And so we were not from so it felt in that sense a bit of a social deficit. Then I wasn't as Iranian. I was 9, and so I really had this American thinking, but my family was, And then you've got family that's still left there. So in one sense, Rich, we're the American dream, land of opportunity, freedom. Look at what's happening. But in another sense, there's another dream. And your dream is like, I've got a cousin in Iran who has MS. And I wish she was afforded. So there's guilt. And then there's like, you're dealing with all this. And then I'm getting wasted on the weekends, I'm smoking weed with my buddies on the weekends. And you don't have to be from Iran to know what it's like to just kind of walk in high school insecurity. And it doesn't take a whole lot for something to really rock your boat, And so I call it a bonfire of vanities, It's like just a perfect storm of all these things that were broken. And so I graduated, bro, from high school with a 1.9 GPA, barely, because I was so into just wanting to fit in. So like the biggest thing on my mind was, how do I get, I was so insecure. How do I get noticed in some sense, even if it's negative, Like I have so many stories about high school. Like my senior year, I see a drop ceiling. My senior year, we bought 10,000 crickets. We went to every bait shop we could find. We bought 10,000 crickets, and we went to this one building in the main one part of our building in our high school, and we removed the tiles off the ceilings, and we released 10,000 crickets as a senior prank. You know, like I look back and I'm like, what was I? Why would I do that? The effort.
Like, how do you solve that?
Dude, the last
Like, you
2 weeks of school,
They're still there. Like,
you know what I'm saying?
yes.
And I was like, what? We disassembled a car and brought it into the teacher's lounge, and in 1 hour assembled it back. Listen, bro, like I went. I don't even remember. This is before the internet. Like, I went and got mannequin arms for graduation. And me and my buddies we would walk up and shake the hand of our principal. He had a pile of arms because he would shake and he didn't know who was a real arm. You know what I mean? Like, I was an idiot. But all of that was birthed out of like, you're a fun hang.
Yeah.
But you're also like, what's rooted in there is
Sure.
like anything and everything to feel like you belong. You know? Can I tell you a fun story?
Yeah. I love these stories.
So I
The mannequin arm thing's great, by the way. Oh,
it's kind of good. You got to.
thank you, Mr. Wagner. He takes your arm off. You just keep walking with your diploma. It's like, dude, stop.
So man, there's this girl. She's a cheerleader, and I found
Persian?
out- no,
Oh, kidding. Sorry.
well, a little blonde girl. You know, I think her name must have been like Tiffany or something. I don't remember. But anyway, so I find out she, as the cheerleader, is in charge of the spirit stick. The spirit stick was this like, we were the Vestavia Hills Rebels by the time my senior year. And it was a red, white, and blue spirit stick about 4 feet tall, 5 feet tall. And we would have pep rallies, and whoever had the best spirit at the pep rally, then they would get the spirit stick. So is it the juniors, is it the seniors, is it the sophomores, or whatever, right? So I find out this girl's got the spirit stick, like it's in the back of her car. So I'm like, I'm gonna go out with her just so I can get my hands on the spirit stick. So I'm dating her. So I'm like, hey, I left something in your car. So I go get it. So this is like, so I made me and this other buddy of mine, we make a replica of the spirit stick, except we made it was just, it was all duct tape, but we made it with pounds and pounds of flour, baking flour. You know how they come in these boxes? We just put them together and duct taped it. Red, white. It looked just like the spirit stick. It's a little heavier. It was just full of, and so full of flour. And so my thought was, whoever wins that spirit stick, and so I start spreading the news to all the seniors. I'm like, hey, we don't need to win today. Like, let's let the juniors win or somebody else, because when they win, they're going to get that spirit stick. It's going to bust on them, and there's going to be flour everywhere. Well, dude, our coach Buddy Anderson, comes out and he's like, y'all ready to come tonight, Friday Night Lights, y'all ready to come support the team? Tonight's going to be amazing. And he's got the whole school going, unity. And I start the chant, nudity. Everybody's yelling. It's like an idiot. And then
you have a gift.
No. And then he grabs the spirit stick to, like, the seniors aren't getting it. And he's going to go take it over, but it never made it to, like, our classmates. It busted on the coach. So I'm telling you this because the man, rightfully so, didn't like me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I got the whole school yelling nudity instead of unity.
Yeah. He's covered in flour.
He's covered in flour on his feet, And so fast forward, I become a Christian at Shays Mountain Baptist Church.
Thanks, Jesus.
Okay. So my youth pastor's like, I'm like, what do I do? I'm not a professional Christian. He's like, one of the first things you need to do is acknowledge that God is, like make a public profession of faith at our church. So Sunday night, you need to come down and let the church know that you've given your life to Christ. So I'm like, yes, sir. So I'm like a brand new baby believer, right? So I come down the aisle, give my life to Christ, and he puts his arm around me and he says, this is David Nasser. He's a Christian. And he said he's become a Christian and he's making his decision public. And you guys need to be praying for him. He's a former Muslim and he became a Christian, and his mother and father are not happy about that at all. As a matter of fact, they've decided recently they've kicked him out of the house because I had just been kicked out by my parents for becoming a Christian. And he said, I need some of you men to come here and let him know that even though his fathers kicked him out, that God's going to give him some spiritual fathers. So they dismiss, and there's a line of guys, coming, we got you, son, slipping me $20 bills, and just like praying, it's sweet.
Yeah.
And I look down the line, and about 6 people away is Coach Buddy Anderson.
Stop it.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. Then it's 5 people away. Then it's 4 people away. Then it's 2. And he walks over to me and he goes, I'm so glad you've changed. Which is a code for you were such a jerk. And I was like, yes, sir. And it was so beautiful, man. He said, and this is a guy I'd been so rude to. I'd been so, I was out of my insecurities, at his expense. I'd been just so rude to him and disrespectful to him. And he said, do you know what FCA is? And I was like, no, sir. He says, it's called the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And people ask me sometimes, was the first time you ever spoke anywhere? He invited me to speak at FCA before school on a Tuesday. He's the first person that ever believed in me and said, hey, I want you to tell people what God's done in your life. And so I don't know how we chased this rabbit, but I don't tell that story a ton. But man, so much of my life, and in one sense, like all of that havoc, I'm telling you about crickets and this and that and the spirit stick. Havoc people just are havoc people, and then you switch teams, and all of a sudden you stay havoc people, but then you cause hopefully havoc for the king, like good kind of havoc.
Just been redeemed.
Let's get into good kind of trouble, And so my high school years were these years, like I said, where there was just a lot of stuff going on but it was all with the wrong intent. And I was always a leader, like natural born, just in the sense that it's weird to say that about yourself, but it's
no, you had influence
I
in
would
where
do
you were
things,
leading people.
I would talk people into. I could persuade people into something, but it was always about things that were insignificant or embarrassing or honestly for their detriment. And then all of a sudden you become a Christian, and Coach Buddy saw it, and he was like, "You stay you. You keep causing havoc."
Yep.
But now you've switched teams.
Let's just point
It's the
that in the right
Apostle
direction.
Paul. First time we see Paul, he's causing havoc. He's at the Lion's Gate in Jerusalem, an accomplice to Stephen's martyrdom. Then you turn the page, Acts 9, he is on the Damascus road to go take out the people of the way, and then the Lord saves him. And a few days later, he was havoc before against Christ, silencing the message of Christ, everything, right? Then he becomes a Christian on the Damascus road. Couple of days later, he walks into the synagogue, and you know what he does? Causes havoc.
Yeah, you better believe it.
And it says, they were like, who is this guy? He used to be on the other team. Well, he switched teams. And havoc people are going to, like persuaders are going to persuade.
Yep.
Intellectuals are going to be but then Christ comes into your life, and you find your actual identity of like, this is why I'm weird.
It's powerful.
This is why he made me.
So you met the Lord, and you were
18.
But you were shunned from your family?
Yeah. So I was in high school, like, and a party and everything, and I graduated from high school. So right after high school, like right after I'd graduated, one night, I kind of gave it away by saying I got saved, but right after high school, one night I was in the car with a buddy of mine, and we were smoking weed. And so it's like almost midnight. I'm about to go inside. And so we're trying to finish up this joint. And my buddy looked over at me. And I know this sounds weird, but this is so the South, the buckle of the Bible Belt. He invited me to church. He said, hey, man, why don't you come to church with me tomorrow? And I was like, bro, I'm not going to church. I'm Shiite Muslim by heritage, but I have no interest in like God, ultimately, because me and him have problems. When I was a kid, I saw him destroy my country, blah, blah, blah. And he kept on me about like, come with me. And I didn't want to go. And so on a Saturday night, Rich, to get my buddy off my back, he came in with me, and he's like, just ask your dad. So I go down the hallway. This is like 12:05 at midnight on a Saturday night. And my parents are in their bedroom, and I knock on their bedroom door, and I said, Mom and Dad, I'm sorry to wake you up. I know you're going to say no. Would you just say no loud enough so my friend can hear and leave me alone? He wants to know if tomorrow I can go with him to a Christian church. And you got to understand, like, again, my mom's pretty much a devout Muslim. And so I thought it's going to be a quick no, and he'll leave me alone. but he was kept bugging me about it. And instead of saying no, my dad goes, "What is the name of it?" And I'm shocked my dad would even want to know the name of the church. But I don't know the name of the church. So I look down the hallway, and my buddy who's stoned yells down the hallway because he hears my dad asking. Like literally, my dad's in his bed, doors closed,
Yeah.
but so my buddy yells, "Shades." And as soon as he said shades, we all knew what that was. That was like shorthand for Shades Mountain Baptist Church that was right up the road from our home. Kind of this big church down the road from our home. And my dad hears that. And Rich, my dad goes, "I know those people." And I'm just confused. I have no idea what's going on. But what I didn't know was I'm standing there on that Saturday night, and 2 weeks prior to that Saturday night, there were these people from this church, Shades Mountain Baptist Church, who had gone to my dad's restaurant to eat lunch. And this one guy named Aubrey Edwards, who was the worship music leader, they called him music director back then, he was eating lunch with some other folks at my dad's restaurant, and they saw on that day how my dad was shorthanded on the wait staff, and like lunch service was horrible. And instead of complaining about the bad service, they got up. Aubrey had everybody get up, and they rolled up their sleeves, and for about 2.5 hours, they waited tables at my dad's restaurant for free. Then they went back the next day and did it again. They went back the next day and did it again. Can you imagine carving out your iCal
Nope.
to just go wait on tables at your desk?
Freaking Christians.
Tell that to an intern at your church.
Jeez.
Carve it out and go do that, much less the guy who was the music director of one of the largest churches, in the state. And so they served my dad. And then because kindness is a superpower, at the end of 3 lunch rushes, he invited my dad, my military Iranian dad, to choir practice. And my dad didn't want to say no because they were so kind to him. And so my dad went to choir practice, bro. And on a Tuesday night, my dad sat there at choir practice. And at the end of choir practice, he gets out a piece of paper and says, "This is my friend, Mr. Nasser. And he has a restaurant and he needs helpers at his restaurant." And I told him, "Don't hire anybody. There's a piece of paper going around. Everybody sign up for shifts to be busboys and waiters and dishwashers at his restaurant." And what I didn't know was that for 2 weeks, that night I'm standing there stone asking if I can go to church. What I didn't know is for 2 weeks, God had massaged my dad's heart with Christians who had shown up at his restaurant and had waited on tables at his restaurant and worked for him for free.
Crazy.
This worship leader was leading worship with a freaking mop in his hand, not a guitar in his hand. And so on a Saturday night, I have no idea any of that's going on. And I go, "Can I go to church?" And instead of saying no, he goes, "What is the name of it?" And then my buddy yells out the name of the exact same church. That'll just about make you a Calvinist, all right? And so then, my dad goes, "I know those people." And then he finishes. He goes, "You can go there, but only there." So my story is not even about an Iranian kid that turned out okay. My story is about a bunch of Christians who were Christ-like, a bunch of believers who were believable. 4 hours north of you, I was at First Baptist Orlando about 18 months ago. And I was sharing my story. In between the second and the third service, I go down and I'm just saying hi to some folks, and this grandma comes up. I know she was a grandma because she had her grandkids around her, and they were like, Gigi. Like, she's legit a grandma. And she walks up, and she's a little teary-eyed, and she's kind of waiting. And then she walks over to me, and she says, "Hey, when I was in college, I remember one night I was at choir practice, and they made us sign up." She goes, "I was a waitress at your dad's restaurant." And we're standing there, man, at First Orlando, and we're both just crying. And I'm like, "It's your fault I'm here." You know what I mean?
Wow.
So my story is not about like Iran and Islam and a revolution. My story is about a bunch of Christians who just loved well, who didn't see Muslims as the enemy, but the prize. You know what I mean? And it wasn't like the size of the organ. They had a big, expensive new sanctuary. It wasn't about the LED walls or how like amazing the curation of the sermon was and the timing. And man, this guy's got jokes. It was like they showed up and my dad needed a busboy and they bus tables.
Preach.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what's that on your budget at VU or my church? You know what I'm saying? It costs a lot more than money. It costs people carving out intentionally and saying, these people matter to God, they matter to us. So, dude, I got to go to church because that church showed up to us. People always talk about hospitality. It's one of my great passions in life. And they go, why is it so dear to you? And the reason hospitality is so dear to me is because I'm a product of biblical hospitality. And it wasn't even that they invited us. They came to our home. They came to our restaurant and served. You know, hospitality is making room for the stranger. It's inviting in someone who's unlikely. And we're a product of that, bro. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so then I went to church. I got to go to church. And I went to church, and when I walked in, like people didn't go, "Ooh, that's the Muslim kid." They knew, like, he's Iranian, he's got some Muslim heritage, but they were like, "Oh, that's the kid who's a partier." And for the next 8 Monday nights in a row, they came to my house for this thing called visitation. And I heard the gospel for 8 Monday nights in a row. One week it would be, God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that if you believe in him, you will not perish but have eternal life. The next week they'd come in, lock and load, same message, different Bible verse. He who knew no sin became sin so you could become the righteousness of God. So next week they'd come back. Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. But some days it'd be a bracelet with beads, and they'd go through every color. Some days it'd be a track that would predictably open into a cross. But it didn't matter, man. Like, whatever the pitch, method different, message same.
Come on.
Every time they'd say, you're a sinner
good.
in need of a savior, and his name
Preach.
is Jesus, and he wants to be your everything. And I kept saying to them, guys, I hate religion. And they'd go, us too. It's getting in the way here. You hate religion, guess who else? The religious people are the very people who put Jesus on the cross. They're like, you have a metallic taste in your mouth about religion? Us too, bro. We don't want you to be religious. We want you to be his. And so for 8 Monday nights, I heard the gospel. And for 8 Sundays, I went to their church because they would come to my house and drag me. And I say drag me, but I was ready with my shoes on going, they're running late, because I wanted to go. And I think people that do know this, because I know you and I know the heart of your church. Love is a magnet.
Yeah.
It's just a magnet, People come, they don't even know why they're coming. Because something in them is made by the image of God to want to belong to something greater than themselves, and want to get, find healing and hope. And there was something about, I call it, these Christians were Christ-like. They were believers that were believable. There's something about them that was magnetic. And so I went for 8 Monday nights to their church. And one night, the preacher, old school, like he was the opposite of Rich Wilkerson. Like, didn't have cool clothes, had a comb over, King James
I have a
only.
comb over. Come on, man.
No, dude, come on. Are you kidding me? And so but even though he wasn't cool and hip, and he didn't have, he was loving, and he was honest, and he was courageous enough to tell the truth from God's word. And one night, Dr. Charles Carter was his name. He preached the gospel. And it almost felt like somebody had handed this guy a sticky note with all my garbage on it. I was like, how do you know? How do you know? How do you know? And he said, if you want to give your life to Christ, I want you to come and meet me in the front. And I remember thinking, all my life I've been terrorized by religion, and now some guy's trying to terrorize me down and out, because I was scared. I felt intimidated. When you're lost, you think of it as guilt, but then you realize later it's actually the opposite of guilt. It's the conviction of the Holy Spirit. It's actually not chains on you. It's chains coming off you. And I was so insecure, so wrapped around and in my mind, I had this idea of it took me a long time to kind of get cool. And now I don't want to be a Christian, because in my mind, I was like, that's uncool. I didn't realize if you're cool and you get saved, you'll just be cool and saved. If you're a nerd and you get saved, just save nerd. I didn't know that. I just thought, I don't want to be, and again, when you're so insecure, you can't see the forest for the trees. And so during that invitation, people were coming forward, and I hit the aisle and I went the other way, and I went to my house. And in my mind, on the drive home, I thought, these Christians are starting to get to me. So next Monday night, I'm not letting them in my home. I'm done. I'm not coming back. I felt very weird. And I got to my house, and God's Spirit was thicker in my house. It's as the psalmist in Psalm 139, where can I go from your presence, O Lord? Like, people read that as like a beautiful thing. It's an annoyance, the omnipresence of God, when you're trying to play hide and seek, right?
Preach.
If I go to the mountains, you are there. If I go to the valleys, you are there. And so there's no borders. And so I walk in my house, I felt like God's presence was thicker. And that sermon from Dr. Carter, this is so good for you to hear, bro. So often we deliver a message and we think we finished preaching. But it echoes in the mind of people.
Wow.
Tuesday afternoon, Thursday afternoon, later on, like point number 2 kind of doesn't, they leave it, but it doesn't leave them, you know? And so sometimes we just feel like, man, it fell on deaf ears today. Like that person that brought their friend. But I'm a product of like, that guy preached, I walked out. So on paper, you'd have been like, that didn't go well. But those sermons were, man, they were like, they kept, I kept getting them in me. And so that night I was 18 and 2 months old. And my parents were out of town that night. And I finally hit one knee in my bedroom and I was like, you know what? Like, these people just love me enough to tell me the truth. And again, I don't want religion. I just want him. I want him. And so that's the night I gave my life to the Lord. And yeah, man, call to die, bro. That's the night the old me died and a whole new me was born again. You know, that call to die book we were just talking about a minute ago, Galatians 2:20 says, for I have been crucified with Christ and I no longer live. The life I live in this body, I live by faith, not by works. That's religion. Faith, redemption, relationship. I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. Ditto. Ditto. And so that's the night the old me died and a whole new me was born again.
When you're sharing that right now, I'm drawn to Luke 19, the story of Zacchaeus coming through. And I was
Is it because I'm short and Zacchaeus?
Maybe.
Yeah.
No, I don't even think of you being short. I think of you being tall in stature. But it says that, you know, he could not see because of the crowd.
Yeah.
And that has always been to me a really, really good picture of religion, that sometimes, I think all the time, people actually are they want to know God.
Yeah.
And they want to see Jesus, but sometimes it's the religion or the crowd surrounding it that they can't see over the crowd. And so, of course, he gets up on that tree.
Yeah, man.
And then Jesus sees him. And just these two things taking place, when I hear your story, I think there's a whole lot here just to chew on for a moment, because often we think of evangelism as like, hey, let me give you the 4 spiritual laws, or if you die tonight, do you know where you're going to go? I'm not against any of those types of tactics, but it's also Romans 2, because of God's kindness, men come to repentance. And it's also because of just hospitality. And the Bible says that Jesus stops, looks up in that tree and says, Zacchaeus, you come down, for I'm going to your house today, AKA visitation.
He self-invites.
Which
self-initiates hospitality.
Goes to his house. And of course, we know the story that we don't even hear his sermon, but we see Zacchaeus' response.
That's right.
Gives away 50% of his, wealth to the poor. If I've cheated anyone, here comes absurd generosity. Let me pay him back 4 times the amount.
Yeah.
And the words of Jesus stick out to me. He says, this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save that which is lost.
Yeah.
And one writer talks about the fact in the Gospel of Luke, there's only 2 times that Jesus refers himself as the Son of Man. Son of Man is a title, it's a phrase of prophetic language of him being, he's not just saying I'm man, he's saying I'm the Son of God, really is how he's saying that. But Luke chapter 19 is his mission. I came to seek and to save that which is lost.
Only 2 times. I didn't
know. The only other time is in Luke chapter 7.
Yeah.
After he is speaking of John the Baptist, and he sends word back to John the Baptist, and he says, hey, the blind receive sight, the lame walk. Go tell John, blessed are you if you do not fall away on account of me.
Wow.
And then they leave, remember, and he starts to brag about John. What'd you go out in the wilderness to see? A reed swayed by the wind, And he says this about himself. He says, John came neither eating nor drinking, but when the Son of Man came, eating and drinking, you say he has a demon.
Wow.
So here's the parallel. Luke chapter 19, the Son of Man, that's his mission. Luke chapter 7, the Son of Man came eating and drinking, that's his method.
Wow. So good, buddy.
And the methodology of Jesus has always been from home to home, person to person.
Yeah.
Most of the time you read the gospel, he's either going to a meal, leaving a meal, at a meal.
Ate his way through the New Testament.
Woo, preach.
That's so good, buddy.
Preach.
You're
but it's
so
just,
right.
It's just powerful because I'm saying
you're
like,
so right.
This is your story.
No. I don't want your people to miss this if they're on a treadmill listening to this thing or whatever. The methodology, tell those two words.
Well, and it's not my content.
And then the method.
The
message.
Luke 7 is his method, eating and drinking. You know, and the Son of Man came eating and drinking, and you're going, he's a drunk. It's like,
no.
John, they didn't believe he was right. You know, he was out in the wilderness, and the Pharisees are mad at him. And now here he is eating and drinking. And they're like, going, this guy's a drunkard. And then Luke chapter 19, the Son of Man came to seek and to save.
Yeah.
So how did he come to seek and save?
Message method. I love that, buddy.
It's
That'll
powerful.
preach, man.
We've all got a mission.
And if you look back on it, why would anybody have ever been surprised? I mean, because what we're talking about here is hospitality.
Yep.
That's Jesus. Like he invites himself to his home. By the way, this was at the height of popularity for Jesus, right? So, and Zacchaeus was not a popular guy. So Jesus gives him the gift of association. And if you're wondering, like, if maybe somebody's listening, by the way, I just don't want to miss this moment. Like, that sycamore tree, that's the buildings you're trying to build. That's the campuses you're trying to add. All they are is places where people can come and get a good view of Jesus.
Very good.
And so people are like, why are we building more why are we raising money for this? We're building sycamore trees.
Very good.
We're planting trees all over this city so that all the Zacchaeuses can get up and get a clear view of Jesus. And that's what we're doing. We're planting trees. We're not church planting is sycamore tree planting. So the Zacchaeuses of the world can get a unobstructed view of our Lord. You know what I mean? So anyway, so then you think about it, and he associates, and then in that Middle Eastern culture, to eat a meal with someone was it was like we're thick as thieves. You know what I mean? Like when I would have you come speak at Liberty for me, and then we would do a 4-hour dinner at my house. That's the fast forward button of like, we just went from like guest to bros, right? And then, I don't know if you remember, then like you got so comfortable, you started inviting people. I didn't even know. You're like, hey, Andy Minio's coming over. I don't know if you remember this.
I forgot about that.
One night.
We brought Andy over there.
One night, people just kept coming to my house. I was like, who are these people? You're like, so you felt at home enough to be like, mi casa, su casa. You were inviting people over. And so like what does that does is it incubates, the hospitality thing is the superpower. And why would anybody be surprised that that's Jesus's message method.
Yep.
All he did was message method. He would be hospitable to someone that everybody else would want to be hostile towards.
Ooh.
Right? And then he would earn the right to bring the message. So here's the theology of that. If you really want to bookend, just begin with this. Open up a Bible, page 1, day 1, in the beginning. And what is that? It's hospitality. In the beginning, before there was a beginning, the beginner, who was the unbegan one, the uncreated one, created. What did the Creator create in the beginning? A place for you and I to be. He's hosting.
Wow.
So the garden is hospitality.
Very good.
Go to the end. What is the end? We know how it ends, right? Revelation 4.
Yep.
Every nation, every tongue, every tribe at the feet. What's he doing in heaven? He's hosting. Over here, he's hosting people that don't deserve it. Over there, he's still hosting people that don't deserve it. So from the Genesis to the Revelation, the whole Bible is hospitality on crack. The entire Bible. And then you look at Jesus, and all he does is sit with the woman at the well, and he's hospitable to her. You know? He goes, it feeds the masses, a bunch of people who weren't there because they thought he was the bread of life. They thought he was the bread giver, not the bread himself. But he didn't go, who's drunk the Kool-Aid? Find out who really bought into me. Everybody got to eat. All Jesus ever did was display hospitality. He literally turned the cross into a table.
Jeez.
And then picked up the tab.
Jeez.
You know what I mean?
So good.
That's hospitality.
Yeah.
Right? And then he freaking pays the bill. Somebody was telling me the other night, you know, we're talking about, we're at that thing with Scott Harrison and Will Guidara's there. Like, this guy is synonymous with hospitality.
Yeah.
Will Guidara wrote the book, you know, Unreasonable Hospitality. Yep. And they were like, you know, the difference between his hospitality, like 11 Madison in New York, and this bougie, it's like $400 and da-da-da-da. And then this literally, I was talking to somebody about it, and they were like, but the difference between them and us is theirs is transactional, but ours is relational. And I was like, no, bro, ours is transactional. We get invited to the table, and someone's got to pay the daggone bill. Jesus paid the bill.
Yep.
The price had to be paid. So ours
Very
is
good.
transactional. Don't cheapen it by
Preach.
just saying we're just relational. All of us are a bunch of people at a table that we don't deserve.
Mm.
You know, and Jesus pays it with his blood.
Mm.
So it's actually a lot more even transactional. Like we are saved by works, by his works.
Yep. Very good.
Right? Like
Yep.
it wasn't like there was no, we're not saved by our works because our works don't work, but his works works.
Come on
Someone's
now.
got to freaking pay the bill. If I try to pay that bill, my good deeds,
Yep.
I went to church, I sang loud, I did this, I went on a mission trip. That credit card ain't gonna, it doesn't hold. It's gonna bounce, bro. That check is not gonna hold. Jesus comes in, gives his entire life to the very people who are hostile to him. He's hospitable to them. You know?
I think
And
it's so
This
encouraging.
is the theology of hospitality. And people see hospitality, and this is why I can say this to you, because my friend, Sam Landers and I, we come on your campus and we don't come in. Someone walks out and meets us. Then we walk there and it's like house of snacks and someone's got our coffee and then like someone's like, here's the rest. I walk in your restroom. I'm like, what's all this hair product? It's hospitality. Like it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. We come up here and it's the warmth and everybody's like so kind and everyone's like, no, everyone's happy to be here. Like a lot of times podcast people are not happy. There's a warmth in here. You know
They're
what I mean?
faking it for you. No, I'm kidding. Yeah.
Yeah, but if they're faking it, they're good
No,
because
no.
they are. And I'm
very
just saying
warm.
to you, like, I'm saying this to you because this is not a contradiction, but it's such a compliment to your house. Because people so often in churches don't do what you do because they think they don't think hospitality is a big deal. They're like, why would we do all this? Why would we meet something? Why would we be warm? Are you kidding me? Like, hospitality is not some soft skill.
Well, they never
that's
read
a
the
pansy-wansy.
qualifications of an elder.
Hospitality is the most beautiful, powerful thing in the world. You want to win the world, hospitality is when it's raining on a Sunday morning and your welcome team is high-fiving going, we get to get the umbrellas out. Now we have to get this is our finest hour. Like you come around here, you can't make eye contact in this place without somebody wanting to meet you. How you doing? What's going on? Like this place is exhaustingly kind. You know what I mean? Like what I'm saying this to you is your church has figured out that hospitality is the most magnetic thing you've got because it's the nature of God, And you start thinking that way and you solve a lot of the problems that we see around our world.
Well, it's important that you're saying this because, and I appreciate the kind words that you're saying. I think that we're always wanting to grow in that, learn in that. Anybody who knows David Nasser, whoever was around any of your ministry at Liberty, but before that, even now, like you just that bleeds out of you.
Yeah, but it's just an overflow what happened to me.
Totally. And
Yeah.
those are the connection points I think people want
Yeah.
to see because we're going to fast forward here into what we're dealing with right now in the world. And I think sometimes we can look at macro worldwide problems and go, we can't solve it. I'm still just an idealist at heart that it's like, I think we could solve a lot of problems just by having a meal together. You know what I mean? But it's just funny how even in the church, we can't get people to sit down and have a meal together. Even in the same church, you can't always get people to sit down and have a meal together.
That's right.
And it is important that someone's hearing this right now because they can hear your story as a refugee living in a Muslim home. And how did this guy get converted? Was it from some kind of incredible drawing ministry? Was it this, come and see ministry? No, it's actually a go and tell ministry.
That's right.
It's actually kindness, service, hospitality long before, like the gospel goes down better with like wine and bread. You know what I mean? Like over a good meal.
Yeah.
And somehow we miss that. And what you were saying that I think, I just want to say this, like, go to Paul's letter to Timothy and he's describing what it looks like to be a deacon or an elder. And it's funny how
Come on, bro.
some of these kind of go to the top of the list, but
That's
then
right.
have you hosted anybody in your home?
Bring it.
Like I've never seen a pastor get disqualified because he never had someone into his house, but like how many
Qualifications
qualifications
for an elder.
But you and I both know, I mean, we're not trying to, we don't use this place to shoot shots. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, I know all sorts of ministers who've never allowed somebody ever into their home whatsoever. And I just feel like it's actually a part. Paul said we didn't just teach, we shared our lives with you. And one of the things that I was always drawn to you about was, when you were at Liberty, especially, this guy, he won't even say that about himself, but was had every speaker and every leader,
You were one of the
every
favorites.
whatever.
You were
That's
probably
not true.
our most
We had
requested.
great nights together, but our nights we
great
talk about was
combos.
never about what happened in the pulpit. It was always what happened
man,
at his
the Lord-
table.
there's an anointing on
But
your life.
I love you. I love you. But we would hang out, and I learned so much about this with you,
Yeah.
which is we would have long conversations afterward. And you just said it does fast forward, and it does kind of put the relationship into an incubator of growth because there's these shared moments. And for me, I just look at that stuff. It's like, it's a qualification that you would actually, and I think people get lost in this. And there's someone listening right now. This is important because we misinterpret hosting versus entertaining,
There you go.
and they're different.
Unpack that for a minute.
Well, I just think that so often I hear people, it's like, oh man, when I finally get an apartment, then I can host people. It's like,
Right.
whoa, no.
Right.
Hospitality
That's right.
is not some weird room at the church
That's right.
that the two elderly ladies, they
That's
have the
right.
gift. This is a gift of the Spirit. And that I teach our staff, you're never the guest. You're always the host. I don't care if I'm even going to be your
right.
guest. I'm still the host. And all
love
that
it.
means is that I'm staying curious.
Yeah.
I'm staying in a posture of serving. I'm not waiting to get a perfect place before I share my life and I
That's
actually bring you into the private areas of my life and I turn this place into a sanctuary. It's what you just said. It's like taking the
You're
cross, turning it into a
equipping
table.
the saints
Yes.
to do the work of the ministry.
Yep.
And you're saying to them, hey, first of all, it's not a suggestion in Scripture, hospitality. It's a command. It's not a suggestion. And it's not just for the mature elder who's a believer. It is a qualification to lead by example. You see the list, right? Like the head of a good household, above reproach, be able to know and understand the word. And then right there, he doesn't just accidentally like go soft and put hospitality in. He's like, if all of that happens and you have a lot of knowledge, but you don't actually like welcome people into your space, by the way, hospitality is not just, I just want to make sure people are hearing us correctly. When you and I are hanging out, it is in one sense hospitality, but it's in the biggest sense, it's actually not even hospitality. When you're at my house, bro, preacher to preacher, two guys love God, you know.
Yep, very good. No,
That's
this is
actually,
very
actually
good.
fellowship.
Yeah, very good. Call that
Hospitality.
koinonia.
Yeah, hospitality is at its greatest sense the love for the stranger. It's when one of these things
Very,
is
very
not
good.
like the other.
Yep.
That's when it's true hospitality. That is when it's not like when Wilkerson is hanging out with Chad Veach.
Yep, very
That's
good.
not like, okay, no duh.
Yep.
You know, it's when Kendrick Lamar decides to invite Drake to collab with him. That's unlikely. It's when the ladies on The View go, we're having a 10th anniversary. Why don't we invite President Trump and honor him as our guest? That's not natural.
Very
It's
good.
supernatural.
Very good.
It's when the Calvinist,
Come on now.
okay, decides to at his conference, you know, to celebrate what God is doing in the life of the church down the road of a flaming Arminian. It's when the pre-trib guy and the post-trib guy get along. It's when people who shouldn't on
Yes.
paper be together come together. And so one of these things is not like the other and they come together and then so it's not when like your hippie buddies invite your hippie buddies. It's not when, you know, your Miami South Beach like bodybuilder guy invites. That's good, but it's more when you get out of your comfort zone and you go, we're on, just the fact that we're together makes people go, what's going on?
It's really good.
And the word of God is clear. Like one of the qualifications of elders is that like you've made room for people in your life that you might not like, but you're called to love. And you don't like the way they voted politically. And it doesn't mean that you just pretend like everything's okay. You can disagree, but you're not disrespectful. And you don't rob them of their humanity. You hold them high. You honor them because you see them, sure, in their wholeness. You see them in their dignity and their depravity. You see them in their pitfalls and their potential, right? And so hospitality is this beautiful thing where you begin to see that. Now, when I'm giving you a compliment, it also is hospitality that like, you got organic snacks up in here and your people are intentional about the warmth. But what's alluring about this space, what Sam Landers and I notice immediately is not the fact that the walls are white and everything's teak wood and everybody's fashionable. That's not hospitality. That's just excellence. That's nerding out on details. That stuff, as a matter of fact, can feel very sterile and not hospitable. It's the warmth of the spirit of the people. It's the
Very good.
welcome. It's the lean in. It's the, like, I'm talking to one of your staff guys, and he's actually listening and then asking the next question. He's curious. Like, there's, oh, like, wow, he's not trying to be interesting. He's interested. Like, there's something about, so like, that's the goodness. And God's going, we've overcomplicated all of this. Like, when someone in your family reunion disagrees with you politically, that's actually an incredible opportunity.
Ooh. Now
So
you're
you ought to
preaching.
want to go to that. You ought to want to go to that. And,
Now you're
and it
preaching.
doesn't mean that you don't hold a conviction differently than them. It means that you hold a greater conviction than that conviction. And the greatest conviction is heaven and hell is at stake, man. People matter to God, and I can't dehumanize them because, you know what I'm saying? And so when people would come to Liberty and they would say, man, the hospitality here is amazing. And they would talk about, like, we had a gift closet, remember? Where you would get to pick your own gift because we were going to spend $50 on you, but let's let you pick your own tie or whatever. And people would go, that's hospitality. I'd be like, that's actually, if anything, trying to be excellent in details. But a lot of people can be excellent in details, but it could be very frigid.
You're absolutely right.
Or it could be potato chips by the lake. Doesn't have to have fine china and great. It could be literally potato chips by the lake, and it feels like home. And God's given the Christian that, hospitality. Can I just kind of maybe bring this closing thought on it, at least from my end? The cross becomes a table. So first and foremost, it's hospitality to us. That God so loved you and I that he would allow us salvation. We deserve hostility. He gives us hospitality. He welcomes love for the stranger. That the stranger would become a citizen of his kingdom, right? That the orphan would become an heir. And so it's hospitality to us. That's the gospel. Then it's hospitality with us, getting along in the sandbox, but we quit beating each other up on secondary issues.
Yep.
You think the wonders have ceased. I think they still exist. You speak in tongues. I don't speak in tongues. You are like, what are we fighting for? Look, we've got to we have too much. We don't just need to get along in the sandbox. We need to thrive together.
Yeah.
The world is watching us. We need to figure out 15 reasons why we love each other instead of one reason why we should be apart. So it's hospitality to us, hospitality with us, unlikely people in the kingdom of God coming together. And then it's hospitality for them. And that's the biggest part, because the lost are not at the table. And we got some inviting to do.
Yep.
And by the way, they're not going to want to come to the table if all we're doing at the family table is picking at each other. Nobody wants to come to somebody's house in the middle of a fight. It's creepy and awkward. They're going to love us when we come together. You know what I mean? Which is one of the things I love about you. You champion you don't ever speak ill of a church down the road. You celebrate their wins. I've been with you, Rich, when, you hear about what's going on in this place or this place. And you're like, man, we're all on the same team.
Yep.
And so that's the beauty of it. And I know somebody might be thinking we're spinning our wheels on hospitality, but I really feel like that's the best takeaway from this. Not somebody hearing my story or being wowed by like going, yeah, I've been to VU. It does feel that way. But hot potatoing it to someone listening right now who's thinking about a next door neighbor, who's thinking about a coworker, who's thinking about the person who's fake lifting at work. You know what I mean when I say that? Like, something's going on. Somebody's listening to me right now, and something's going on with that coworker. Like they're not doing their work properly and stuff. And you're having to like kind of do their work for them. But instead of going to the boss and leveraging that to say you're an awesome employee and they're not, why don't you just cover for them? And at the staff meeting, when the boss gives them a compliment for the work you actually did, don't wait, be like, well done. Why don't you? And then they'll come to you later and go, why do you care? Because you've been hospitable. You don't think then they'll actually, if you invite them at Easter, they'll take it more seriously and maybe get some pastel colors on and come join you after you've been kind to them? Somebody's listening to me right now, and grass is growing again in the neighborhood. And you got that one neighbor, everybody's walking by going, that should have been cut 3 cuts ago. Well, get your butt out there and cut it for him. And if they ask you why are you cutting my grass, don't be like, it's an evangelism tool. No, just be like, dude, I need a sweat. This is a favor for me. I needed a sweat. You know, like you got
So
a
good.
neighbor from Iran who's moved into your neighborhood, you know, in South Beach or whatever. Like, take a casserole over. Now, don't put pork in it because they're Muslim, so be aware. But like, don't put bacon on top of it. But like, figure out a way to get in.
Yep.
You know, never underestimate the power of just being nice.
Totally. Well, and that's where I think we should close the gap. It is so underestimated.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't think it's happening. Is I think people think it's little league. I think people think it's elementary.
That's a good way to put it, little league.
In the world that we live in today, with all of the problems and with all of the issues, there's no way stopping and having a meal and being curious without me giving you my opinion could ever make a change.
Yeah.
And to that, I just say you don't know the Bible.
Yeah.
And to play towards everyone's little spiritual ego out there too, it has always been interesting, that verse to me. It's like, and when you are hosting or entertaining, you never know, you might be entertaining angels.
Bro,
it's like
100%.
You don't know.
That's
and
right.
so what is your posture? And I think in your story as you're sharing it today, I'm just blown away because I didn't know this part. I didn't know that the testimony side. As you started following Jesus, because I want to bring us up to some moments that we're facing right now as a nation and what's going on in the world. The sacrifice that you went through is that you were banished from your home. Is that, I mean, like what?
Yeah.
And what's the outcome of all that?
Well, the most devout I ever saw my father as a Christian was the night I became a Christian. I mean, as a Muslim, was the night I became a Christian.
Okay.
My father was like, "We are Muslims." I was like, "We are."
Yeah.
You know, and my mom was, but my dad wasn't. And to him, it was like he had lost his position in the army.
Sure.
He'd given up these things, and he'd lost so much of, and now because of his prodigal son, who had been led away to Christianity, he had lost his religion. It's almost like that coat in your closet you never wear until your wife wants to give it away, and all of a sudden you're like, wait. Like I think he didn't care until all of a sudden he became a thing that he thought he was losing, and so that's what hit him hard. But bro, 5 months after I was a Christian, I heard from my sister, and she'd given her life to Christ. And then 5 months after that, my mom gave her life to Christ. And then my brother Benjamin, who loved him some Rich Wilkerson. You know, he passed away, and the Lord took him home, but with cancer. But Benjamin gave his life to Christ. And then 2.5 years later, my dad gave his life to Christ. And my dad passed away last year. And
I'm so sorry.
This week I woke up Sunday morning and I sprayed his cologne on because it was the anniversary of his passing. And in one sense, as I was spraying it on, I was like, I want him near me. But the truth of that is, he is, because of Christ, he is near me. Like I will be at that table because Jesus paid the tab for him. My dad got saved, 2.5 years. So our story is really a story of the gospel at work. And so, yeah, our whole family's saved.
Today, when you see what's taking place and all that's happening, how has that all hit you, this war that's taking place in Iran? What has been your relationship with Iran the last, 25 plus years? Have you ever gotten to go back and visit?
Yeah, it's a great question. We can't go back because we escaped with political asylum. However, we've been able to always keep in touch with our family and our friends, and we've been able to, and this has been a prayer for us. And so, 3 weeks ago when I woke up and I heard the news that, like everybody else, we woke up and realized that Israel and the United States were bombing. This sounds so weird, like that the people in Iran, the overwhelming majority of the people in Iran are rejoicing, and the people in the diaspora, Iranians that are outside that are exiles, are rejoicing of like their nation being bombed, is because it wasn't bombing for their detriment, it was bombing for their betterment. It was we're trying to free you from this regime that for 47 years has basically held you as a people hostage, right? I mean, the Iranian culture, bro, is a rich, beautiful, and I know I'm a little partial, but the arts, the math, the science, the food, and for so long, these 47 these people have just been held back and oppressed and tortured by these religious zealots that have taken over the country. And so 3 weeks ago, I wake up and I hear the news, and to me, it's like, wow, we might be on the cusp of a democracy. And this could be it. This could be with the help of, and the Iranian people were going to do this with or without the help of allies, but man, it sure helps to have some air war, when they didn't have the weapons. And so the last few weeks, it's been two things. It's been terrifying, because you're thinking about your family back home and you're hearing about all the stuff that's happened. And then it's also been exhilaratingly hopeful, that it's happening. And so it's been an interesting few weeks because, bro, in the last few weeks, so much of what I thought would be impossible, and I always preach, you preach, God is a God of the impossible. So much of what I thought, there's no way. It just feels like now, oh, it might actually happen any day. Our people might, as far as the government is concerned, be maybe afforded. This thing could be toppled over, or they could be afforded democracy. And I get it. Like what the people of Iran ultimately need is not a democracy. They need revival.
Yep.
They don't need political liberation. They need spiritual liberation. But what's amazing about that, buddy, is that the single fastest growing church in the world right now is the underground church in Iran. I call it stub behind the walls. And so God's already got his people, and they've been growing. And through dreams, God has been converting. And through the underground church, his bride there in Iran, God has been converting. And so God's already been moving, and God's already teeing it up. And so I think if it becomes a democracy, they're no longer needing to be the underground church, and this could be their finest hour. They could literally be the counseling arm for a nation that's been through so much hurt and trauma. They could literally be the women empowerment arm. They could literally be the heroin addiction recovery arm. They could literally be like the church could be the greatest. The global church could partner with the local church in Iran and let this be. But even if it's not that way, even if it's not a democracy, even if it reverts back to, God forbid, but it reverts back to the theocracy that it was and it is currently, it still empowers the underground church that's already the fastest. Like even more reason for people to be sick of religion gone wrong and look for true redemption in Christ.
Have you been able to talk with any of your family over there?
My sister has.
And what kind of things are they saying?
Very little. I mean, the internet's been shut down. It's a propaganda war right now, and it's complicated. But they're in survival mode. Blackouts and no communication, and people are afraid to believe. And they've been communicated clearly that like this is the time to prepare for your revolution, and meaning, I think what the overwhelming people in Iran feel is that allies like Israel and the United States are strategically, strategically taking out the proper targets and weakening the regime so that you can have a better shot really at coming in and fighting the good fight. And so from what we're hearing, this is the beginning of the end, right?
Yeah.
For the old. And that's certainly our hope. But nobody knows.
Right.
Ask 20 people and they'll tell you 20 different, ask 20 Iranians and they'll tell you 20 different theories on what's going on. I've been in a ton of podcasts. I went into one podcast. I was 2 minutes into the podcast and the guy said, I just need you to know, I think this is all about the Epstein files. People just want to get everybody's eyes off the Epstein files and into Iran. This whole thing's about the Epstein files. And I was like, okay. First of all, you don't know.
Right.
I was like, you think because you got a phone and an algorithm that like, if it is, you have not been invited into that room.
Yep.
You're nobody. You're a podcast. I'm a nobody. You don't know. I don't know. Somebody was like, it's about the 7 banks. I'm like, okay. It's about banking. You don't know. It's about Halliburton and the fog of war and the profiteers, the warmongers. I'm like, okay. You don't know.
Yep.
Like I just like Team Candace versus Team Erica, Team this. Like people act like they freaking know.
Yep.
You're like you don't know anything.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I was at Liberty, like where we had all kinds of guests. It wasn't just the Rich Wilkerson. So I hosted Pete Hegseth.
I was not a big guest at Liberty.
Yeah.
The week I was there one time, Donald Trump was on Tuesday
right.
and I was on Thursday.
That's exactly right.
That's crazy.
Come on, bro. So,
come on, bro.
Kanye in both of those.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? The guy who did the cover for that book.
Oh
and
my gosh.
But I'm not name dropping. I'm just saying, like, I hosted Pete Hegseth. We hosted President Trump.
Yep.
We hosted Corey, Joy, Anthony Scaramucci. Like all these people that people bring up. We hosted Charlie Kirk multiple times. He's a friend of mine. We hosted Candace several times. All I'm saying is, just like you and I became friends, 8 years of hosting 88 combos a year.
Yep.
If anybody would have a little bit more of I kind of might know, it'd be the guy who can text some of these people that people have theories about. And I'm just going to tell you, I have zero idea what's going on.
Yep.
I don't know. I'm not important. I'm not invited in it. And I don't think anybody. And I think if there was actually an effort to try to know, the truth of the matter is that it's much more complicated.
Yeah.
It's probably a mixed bag of good intent and ill intent and this and this and this. But here's what we don't know. Here's what we know. What we know is no one listening to me right now actually knows exactly what's going on under the sun. But right above the sun, I know exactly what's going on. God is doing something. God has his church. God is the ultimate. What is the name of that? I forget it. Operation Fury Force or
yes.
God is the ultimate.
Yep.
And he's got the ground war and the air war.
Yep. He's
fighting that good fight, and he's got the stomach for it.
Yep.
God's not trying to make sure that at the midterms he's still up for election. God ain't leaving. And so what I know is that God is up to something bigger. Can I tell you?
Yeah.
So 3 weeks ago, I wake up and my phone is exploded. I mean, not physically, but I look at my phone. It's like because through the middle of the night, Iran has been bombed by American troops and American forces and Israelis and so it is like this could be the dawn of a new day. This could be it. This could be the moment for people to liberate. So when you're the only Iranian, a lot of people know. I'm hearing from people I ain't heard from in months. Some of them is like Ezekiel 38. Some of them are giving prophecies. Yeah. Some of them are like praying for you, bro. Some of them are like, we got to have you back at our church again. So for like 2 minutes, you're like back on their radar. And, some of them aren't so spiritual. Some of them are like, Auburn lost this weekend. The terrorists lost this weekend. Roll Tide. Good weekend. I'm like, okay, thank you, buddy. So my phone, I'm just reading stuff. And I get up and I've got to go that Saturday morning. I've got to go. And he's here with me too, my friend Sam Landreth's church, because they're having a youth event, youth and college event at his church, packed out their sanctuary, one of the greatest leaders. But anyway, so they booked me to be a speaker at their event. So the whole drive, my phone's going, woo, 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 woo. So I get to his church, and it's like, you've been there, like, this is the program, 3 songs and you're up.
Yep.
So session 2, So
Session 2.
Somebody comes back to the green room and they're like, hey, Pastor David, we're ready for you. This is this last song. So I leave their little green room and I go out to where like the LED screens are.
Yeah.
And I'm standing behind them at my friend Sam's church, and I've got the microphone in my hand and I've got my like notes. But I made the mistake of having my phone in my pocket and my phone's going, I'm just like, and you're probably more godly than me, but I just wanted to check. So I check, and I'm reading and it's like a half a song before I'm up. And all of a sudden I get convicted. God's like, hey, put your phone down. You got kids in front of you. Like these are, like I say, kids, like teenage. You have a responsibility for session 2. So in my mind, Rich, I thought, I need to stop. I literally thought this. I need to stop thinking about Iran for just a minute and think about Spring Hill, in this church right here, and as soon as I said that, I took the phone, I put it on like a little wedge speaker thing backstage. I put it there and I thought, I'm gonna close my eyes and stop thinking about Iran. I closed my eyes and I went like this with my mic in my hand. And as soon as I closed my eyes, clear as day, I get this vision, this picture, clear as day, of a soccer stadium, 30,000, 40,000 young people in Iran in a soccer stadium, and they all have their hands up. So I look over there, and these teenagers all have their hands up and they're worshiping, and I'm hearing them sing. And then in my mind, I get this vision of like 30, 40,000 people in Iran in a soccer stadium, and they've got their hand up and they're singing Holy Forever. And they're screaming out of the top of their lungs, your name is the highest, your name is the greatest, your name, it stands above them all. Listen, all thrones and dominions, all powers. And those words play different in Iran.
Ooh.
Thrones, we had a monarchy. We had a throne, and how'd that play out for us? Dominions, demonic dominions. How's that working out for, and I just have this vision of people singing. So I'm just a mess. I walk out there, fumble through the sermon. And the next few days, as all of this is unpacking, right? That was that morning that first happened. As all this is unpacking, man, like every time I'm thinking about Iran, which is like every minute on the, and I'm just, I'm doing like Fox News hits about it. It's just consuming my time for the next 4 or 5 days. Every time I'm thinking about Iran, the soundtrack became my prayer. I would sing that song. Your name is, I would join this vision of like Iranians singing that in Iran, that song. So fast forward about 4 days, 5 days, and all that, I keep singing that. I probably sang it, no kidding, bro, like 75, 80 times. Like every time, I just kept, in my mind, I was singing it. So I'm laying in bed about 4 or 5 days later, and I wake up like about 3:45, 4 in the morning, and I'm like, I wonder if while I was sleeping, something happened. Like, was there a bombing in Israel and Iran? But I can't turn the TV on because Jennifer's sleeping beside me, my wife. And so I'm like, I can't turn it. And so I'm just like, I wonder what's going on. And so I thought, let me stop, let me just pray. So I start praying that song. So in my bed, I'm like, your name is the highest. And then it dawned on me, they're probably not going to be singing it in Iran in English. They're probably going to be singing it in Farsi.
Yeah.
So I thought, I don't know it in Farsi. And my Farsi is bad. I know it a little bit. So I go get my phone. You've been there when you try not to wake Don Cherie up, So I put the pillow so the light won't. And I just and I get on YouTube and I'm like, Holy Forever, Chris Tomlin song. Holy Forever, Chris Tomlin in Farsi, which is Persian. And like 5 versions pop up. So I'm looking at these versions, and then there's this girl by herself, and she looks a little bit like my daughter, because my daughter's half Iranian. And so I thought, I wonder who this is. So I click it, and it's this girl. She's got her phone out, but like far. The sound is horrible, and she's singing Holy Forever in Farsi. And I'm in bed, I'm just being led in worship by this girl, right? This 22-year-old teen, I don't know, some girl. So I'm just worshiping. Jennifer wakes up. She goes, what are you doing? I take my earbud out. I give it to her, and I go, listen. So, we're sharing earbuds, and we're singing. And she's singing in her sweet Southern accent, And I'm just singing it in Farsi, like, very badly. And I get up, and I have to drive to Rome, Georgia for this podcast that the guy was like, you have to be here for. Like, we only do it in person. And so I got like a 4-hour drive. So I get out of bed. Jennifer's still in bed listening to it. I go start shaving, getting ready. While I'm shaving, Jennifer comes in the bathroom. She's like, hey, after you left, I kept Google stalking this young lady. So I have left YouTube. I'm now on Instagram. She goes, her name is Golnoosh, Golnoosh. Her name is Golnoosh. And this girl's a baller. She said, David, she's like, I'm shaving. She goes, look at this girl. She's like, she's a worship leader. She went to Bethel School of Music. So I'm like, oh, she must be in Redding, California. And she loves the Lord, and she loves Iran, and she wants revival in Iran. And like, look at her. So she's showing me this stuff. And then she hands me my phone, and she goes, you should text her. I'm like, I'm shaving. So she goes, just DM her. I go, baby, she ain't following me. She goes, no, just DM her. So on Instagram, I DM her, and I'm like, hey, Golnoosh, you don't know me. I'm an Iranian-born pastor, lives in Tennessee. I just want to encourage. I don't even remember what I put because like I'm wet, you know. And I just put my number and I said, I'd love to just encourage you. Thank you for leading me in worship. That blessed me. And so, dude, I drive, do this podcast. I'm done with the podcast. I'm getting back in my car all afternoon. I haven't checked my phone. I'm driving to Atlanta to do, because the next morning I've got some consulting to do with the North American Mission Board. So I'm just trying to get to the hotel. So I'm almost in Atlanta. And I look at my phone and I see that this girl has actually DM'd me back. So she's left her number. Please call me. Please call me. She's a couple times. So I call the number and she's like, hello, Mr. Nasser. I'm like, hey, Golden Nush, I'm so sorry to bother you. And she goes, no. She goes, as a matter of fact, my father tried to get a hold of you about 10 years ago. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. She goes, no, it's okay. She goes, we'd love to talk about Iran and pray, but can we meet in person? And I thought, she's an evangelist. I ain't going. I said, well, where are you? She goes, no, I live in Atlanta. I live in Marietta, Georgia. And I'm like, well, honey, I'm about 45 minutes from Atlanta. I'm driving right now because I've got to, even though I live in Tennessee, I've got to be there tomorrow morning for some stuff. And so the next thing you know, we are an hour and 15 minutes later, her mom and her dad and her, we're in an Iranian restaurant in Atlanta.
Stop.
Okay. So he comes up, he sits down, they sit down. And we're sitting there, we're ordering Iranian food, and I look over at him, and this man, I've just met him 30 seconds, and I said, so what do you do? And he said, well, I'm an underground church planner in Iran. I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, we have 14 house churches. He said, we had 15, but my son in the ministry, who was a heroin addict that God delivered and rescued and saved, was kind of my son in the ministry. And he was recently shot in the temple. He was murdered for being a church planner. And he said, so we've lost the campus. That's very different than when we lose a campus.
Very different.
And he said, but God is good. And he's telling me about what the work. And I said, why are you on this side of the ocean? He said, well, we were smuggling Bibles back and forth to the Turkey border and we got caught and arrested. But then the UN got involved in advocacy and we got brought here 14 years ago. But that's what I do for a living. I lead those leaders, my wife does, and we with our laptops and stuff, that's all we're doing. And he's telling me about their work and it's phenomenal. And so then I go, how did you even get saved? And Rich, he points at his daughter and he goes, when Golnush was born, they have 2 daughters. She was the oldest. When Golnush was born, he said, you have to understand, Mr. Nasser. He said, when Golnush was born, her heart was not fully formed. And the cardiologist at the hospital told us that it's not like a preemie thing. Like there were parts of her heart that was like literally not formed, missing. And so they were never going to grow. And she said, and after a while, they released us out of the hospital and said, she's going to have just a few weeks maybe. Just a few weeks. So you should go home and spend time with her every day that you have with her. But her little heart's going to give out and she's not going to make it long. So he said, and so we leave. We're Shiite Muslims. We're devout Shiite Muslims. We leave. We go home. We're just completely defeated that our daughter is about to die in our arms any minute, any day. And he said, and in the middle of all of that, we get invited to a church, some Christians find out, and they invite us. And he said, and we normally never would have gone, but we're so desperate, and so we just said, okay. So we go. They go to this Iranian little church, and the pastor of the church finds out what's going on with them, prays over them, and while he's praying, he lays hand on the daughter, on Golnush, infant baby, and prays for healing. And when he says amen, he looks at them and says, hey, I don't want to freak you out, but when I was praying, I felt like something moved. So you might want to go get it checked out. So they go to the cardiologist, pediatric cardiologist. They're like, we were told something might have moved. God. He's like, what? He's like, we told you, they're being kind to them. Like, hey, quit wasting your time. Yep, yeah. Precious. They're like, would you just go check? Just go check. So the doctor goes to the back. An hour later, whatever, they check her out. They get an MRI. They come back, and he's dumbfounded. Muslim, renowned cardiologist. He comes back, and he goes, what happened? What happened? It's grown back. Her heart is healed. What happened? Well, he gets the question almost right because it wasn't what happened. Who happened? Your name. is the highest. Your name is the greatest. And so the dad goes, and the doctor said, well, I'm a Muslim, but if that is Jesus, I believe in that Jesus. And he goes, this is like we're both crying over hummus. And he goes, and that is when I become a Christian. I like to go on this. I said, before you could even talk, you were a little evangelist. You led your daddy to the Lord. It took a year for her mom to come to Christ, and then they became church planners. So, bro, then she says to me, Golnish says to me, how did you even find out? Because this is so weird. Like, less than a couple of hours before, you know what I'm saying? Like, we didn't even know about each other. And now we're having dinner. She goes, how did you even hear about me? I said, oh, I was Googling Holy Forever in Farsi, and you came up. She goes, oh, it is a horrible take. I said, oh, it is not good. It lacks polish, but it has power.
Come on.
It has power. And I said, and the reason that I looked it up is, I said, this sounds silly to you. I know this sounds like a fantasy and not a dream, but I feel like God's given me a dream.
Come on.
At your church, Sam. I said, I was at this church, and I closed my eyes and I saw this vision. And I said, I know this sounds crazy, Golnish, but there were 30,000 people in this soccer stadium in Iran worshiping Jesus. Like, they weren't like gathered together to be imprisoned or martyred. They were gathered together to worship freely. And she's just nodding her head. And I go, what? And she's trying to be polite because we just met. And she goes, well, I had the same vision. And I said, really? 30,000 people? She goes, no. She goes, that's a good pre-crusade. My vision is for 100,000. And we don't have a soccer stadium. It's a field. And there'll be 100,000. And she goes, and I want to go back. I want to live. The second I can, if this thing happens, I'm going back. Our whole family, we want to go back. A couple of days later, I'm at Pine Lake Church in Mississippi. It's one of those big old churches with 20,000 people, campus here, there, everywhere. And I invited her to come lead. She has never led in her life in front of a crowd. First time in, deep end, 20,000 people. She walks out in Farsi. She's leading Holy Forever in Farsi. Worship team ramps up. And I mean, you ain't heard... You may not have heard Holy Forever until you've heard a bunch of people in Mississippi trying to sing it in Farsi/country.
That got me. That got me.
And so you're asking me what's
not
God
polished,
up to?
But powerful.
Again, you don't know what's going on under the sun, but I can tell you what's going on above the sun. It ain't even like, what if God does this in Iran?
Preach.
God has sent her here as an evangelist. Let's just stop right now and just say, God has sent me from the 1040 window to Miami to be an evangelist. Apparently, Miami needs evangelism as much as Tehran or Isfahan and Mashhad. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so you cannot tell me that God is, what I know is that something much bigger is at play. And so what God wants to do is not like, if this thing topples, God will do something. God's already doing it, and he's doing it here, and someone's listening to this podcast, and the takeaway from this podcast is just go love your next door neighbor. Come on. And the only reason we're talking is because something happened in Iran, and all of a sudden, like, you and I are texting each other, and we're just reminiscing as friends, and you're praying for me, and I'm praying for you, and something much bigger was up to play than that. Somebody listening right now to this podcast, watching it right now, is convicted that they've not been kind to a neighbor, and God's going, that's the bigger play. This isn't about a revolution over there. This is about a revival over here. You cannot tell me that God does not work all things for the good of his purpose. I'm never going to be the same. You just heard her story. You ever going to be the same? Mm-mm. Are you kidding me? You know?
Jesus.
She led Sunday at my church. My pastor was like, you can't have her over there. Not have her. And then all of a sudden, she's like leading all 4 services at my church. You know?
Jesus.
Worship leaders found out. I've been telling the story. My entire focus has been like, my son said, Dad, like, all these opportunities have come your way recently. I'm like, he was like, isn't that crazy? You've been focusing on like bringing her up, and God's been, I was like, isn't that that's how it works, buddy.
That's how it
Upside
works.
that, quit worrying about like your name. It's his name.
Come
and
on.
Let me open doors for her. And in the middle of all of this, I'm just telling you, bro, like, you don't want to have her at VU.
Right. Right. Of course we
Buckle
do.
up, Buttercup. When she comes, yesterday, 2 days ago, my church on Sunday, she led half a song, then our team led the song, and then our church is kind of like your church. It's kind of United Nations up in there. We got Kurdish, Spanish, Jamaican, Indian, both dot and feather. I mean, we got all of them, man. We got everybody. And then our worship team said, you sing in your language the name of Jesus and pray it over your nation. And there in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, bro, 3 packed services, people just screaming, people with their hands up, yelling his name above every name, his name. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Beautiful.
my church will never be the same. And
Beautiful.
so to me, it's like, why would we waste this?
Yep.
You know?
And that's the phrase right there. Like, when moments like this come, I love the idea. Don't waste your pain. Even,
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I study church history, but when I see it even in the gospel, is any time that there was persecution, the other side of it was just multiplication. The church always grew.
That's right.
We did not grow from success to success. We've always grown from sacrifice to sacrifice. And when you get around somebody who's dealt with real persecution, where it's actually cost them something, on the other side of it, there's a higher value and there's a potency that is stronger. We just had a friend on not too long ago who's part of Iran Alive, which is a ministry that we support and we love. And we've got a couple of friends that are really a part of that. These are Iranians, just like yourself, that are now living in America that are using technology to evangelize in Iran. And he said to me, we do not ask God to remove the persecution or the suffering. We just ask for people to pray that we would be able to endure and withstand it because it's refining his church.
Yeah.
And when I hear that,
Yeah.
and when I hear stories like this, you kind of just sit there and you're like, what on earth am I complaining about?
This is more personal for you, though, than just your friendship with me and your friends that are around. You have a family friend who's,
For us, it's been such a, as you're talking, there's all these layers to all of this. And for me, like just you being here today, it's really special to me because in the last 2.5 years, I didn't know much about Iran. I didn't know much about 1979. I didn't know much about the regime beforehand. And about 2.5 years ago, our kids who are in homeschool, we had a teacher who is from Iran who met Jesus in China teaching English.
Wow.
Got completely radically saved, evangelized her family. They all got saved. And was in Miami, and that's a whole nother, we should do a whole podcast on just how it even aligned with our family, but has been such a friend and such a gift to our family and someone that we love, and recently moved to Dallas to go and help that ministry. And trust me, I was trying to double the pay and trying to say you can't leave, but such a clear call of what she's here on this planet for. And so the last 3 weeks, but even before that, when the protests really began and the internet being cut, and just hearing the stories from her family and what the people are saying, so much different from how the media is putting this out there.
Right.
And but she's suffered severe loss. I mean, with family members that have passed.
And this is a person
that we know
who's been a big sister to your kids.
Yeah. Oh my
She's
gosh.
like a daughter to you. Yeah. And you're watching you're watching the grief and the glory in all of this.
Beautiful language.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And I think for me,
I'm sorry, Mitt.
I mean,
you've shed tears with that.
We have. As a family, we have. And this person has been just a gift to our home.
Yeah.
To me, it's been so sobering, and I've learned so much as I've watched somebody suffer well.
Yeah.
Every day she's on the streets evangelizing. I'm like, who have I evangelized this week? She's teaching my kids apologetics, and rightfully so. She knows apologetics much greater than I do, and I have the title and the job of being a pastor. And so this whole story has been just really, really close to home for us, and we're learning a lot and watching a lot. What would you say, David, like as people are listening right now, and I think you took us there, but like, what should the response be right now for the Christian in America as we're looking at geopolitics and everything becomes polarizing in America? It's like, what do you speak up for? What do you do?
Sure.
What are you offering to people right now saying this is how you should proceed? This should be your response.
Man, thanks for asking that. Buddy, I hope people hear my heart when I say you don't know. What I'm saying is none of us know under the sun all the things that are happening. When the Iranian Revolution was going on, I didn't know what. I was a 9-year-old kid. I had such an obstructed view, a lack of understanding, and it hasn't gotten a whole lot better now that I'm in my 50s. Like, I'm asking, so to answer your question, let's walk in humility,
Yeah.
that we don't pretend like we hold all knowledge and power in what's happening. Let's understand that it's important that our gas prices go up and that matters. So like, that's not like, get over it. That's not that at all. I'm an American citizen. I'm an American citizen. Like, I don't want our soldiers harmed. I want swift justice. I want minimized, right?
Casualties. Of course, yeah.
And so it's fine to want all of that, and ask God for that, and let's beg for that, you know? But at the same time, let's trust that God is up to something in the middle of all of this, and turning tragedy into testimony, in using this moment in the life of people. And so, however you want to lean on this, as in the geopolitics of it, it's fine. You might be right and I might be wrong. I'll go ahead and give it to you. I'm wrong, you're right. Your hunch of what's really going on is right, or your view of whether we should be there or not, whether this was an imminent threat or not. You know, I believe that for 47 years this nation has been waging war against the West already. So this is but I could be wrong. So rather than, it's fine for us to be here, but I think I would say to the church, can all that happen, but not at the expense of the bigger picture? Can you just can what's in all caps, don't minimize the other conversations, but maximize the font size in your heart of the greatest conversation, which is, can you right now just know your brothers and sisters in Iran, the church, the sons and daughters of God, our family members, have an opportunity right now to evangelize like never before? And could you pray for their provision and their protection, and for God to give them inroads, and for them to have their brightest hour,
Beautiful.
Right? And so that would be my plea, that like, and by the way, I would ask that for the people in Somalia.
Yep.
I would ask that for the people who are in the blackout in Cuba.
Yep.
You know, like, light shines the darkest. I mean, shines the brightest in the darkness. And so there's blackout, and in one sense, that's horrific. I can't imagine what it would be like to live in a world where for days upon days there is no electricity. But at the same time, could this be an opportunity for neighbors to be more loving and share what they do have, and invite those, because they still have a little candle left? And so can God be using this in the life of the church?
I believe he is.
And you know, so my plea would be, don't ever, it's what we hear about in Ecclesiastes, you know, Solomon's like, under the sun, above the sun. Like, it's fine. Just don't get so caught up under the sun that you miss that God is doing something above the sun. And can that be what you pray for? Can that be what you're thinking about? And can you see this not as Iran, but the kingdom of God, borderless kingdom of God, that something is happening and something greater is at play? And when you think of it that way, then you don't wake up and the first thing you're thinking is like, why are we even over there? You're like, God's already over there.
Yep.
And so I can think of whatever, but I want to see God move in and through this. And that's just as much the case for somebody listening who just heard that the cancer's back.
Yeah.
They're going through their revolution. And so it's fine that they're going to talk about what's the best doctor and why won't our insurance copay cover this, and can we, all of those things under the sun matter, but don't focus just on the under the sun.
Yeah,
just know that through this cancer, you know, doctors are watching you. Through this cancer, your children are watching you suffer well. Through this healing that we pray God's going to bring, people will shake their head in awe and go, who is this God? Like that doctor. I believe in that Jesus, you know. And so can we just never, we're not physical beings in a spiritual world. We are spiritual beings in a temporary physical body.
Yep.
And so can we first and foremost make this a spiritual conversation? So that would be my plea.
It's really, really beautiful. It's, oddly enough, I read the first 3 chapters of Ecclesiastes this morning.
Did you?
Yeah, I've been in it the last couple of weeks, but it's just the teacher, you know, and learning and being reminded. And I think that you're saying it so beautifully. Also, just in a very practical sense, like everyone wants breakthrough, but no one wants anything to break. And oftentimes before the breakthrough, something has to break. And I don't say that in some kind of coy, catty kind of way.
Yeah.
This is serious stuff that's taking place. People are losing their life on both sides.
That's right.
But we want to believe that God can, like you said, Romans 8, work it all together. And that should be our prayer. I think our moment right now should be, this is an opportunity for freedom. This is an opportunity for the gospel to go forth.
Yeah.
And we're believing for that. I'm so grateful for you.
Man,
And
I love
I'm
you.
so happy that this even worked out the way that it worked out. And I'm so pumped that in this cultural moment that we find ourselves in, that we have a voice just like yours to be platformed more than ever. And you've always been wise beyond your years. I think that you've just walked such a faithful journey of integrity. You talk about somebody who brings people together. Man, you should be doing master classes on hosting all the different types of people, that you were a friend to so many different tribes and so many different spots, and you've just navigated all this. We definitely are going to do another podcast talking all through people, how you've been friends with all the people that you're friends with, how you actually enjoy them. That it's not like you're not like faking. You actually enjoy and stay curious. And there's so many things I admire about you. And I'm so happy that we're gonna go hopefully eat some food right now together.
Yeah, man.
We do always ask this question.
Yeah.
What's an area that you have to mature in right now?
What area do I not need to mature?
Come on, whatever.
Seriously, bro. Are you
Stop,
kidding?
man.
I think recently the Lord has really made me aware of my lack of awareness. It's such a gift that God would give you a Dawn Cherie. You know, she's a prophetic voice in your life, and you trust her because she's earned it. And God's given you friends. I know you've surrounded yourself with not just a bunch of yes people. I know some of your friends. You know, some of your dearest friends are some of my distant friends, and I know the people that your tribe your life with, and sometimes they gotta you don't see yourself. Like my wife said to me one time, I don't think that played in the room like you thought it played in the room. You know, or like we're leaving dinner and she's like, how did you think you were received when you said what you said? I thought it was funny. I don't think it was that funny to the person that you kind of interrupted. And so I'm learning that even in my 50s, still rooted deep down in the years I didn't belong, and I was a little Napoleon, trying to strive to do little things, like so much of what we just kind of even confessed to one another in the earlier part of this podcast. I'm learning that like those things still are rooted in this, you know, like this thing, this flesh that's being redeemed every day towards Christ likeness. But I need to be better at being aware, you know, what's around me. So do you. We all do. But
all of us,
if you're saying, what do I need to mature in? I have a lot of maturing to do, but just awareness.
Wow.
And I would ask for that prayer. You know, because we mean well. I think most people in ministry get a wrong, bad rap. We're not, we want to spend time, and it's crazy and hectic, and we're not ever, only Christ had the ability to go, who touched the hem of my garment?
Yeah, totally.
Stop everything. I'm unaware of you know, there's food here. I don't even know it. For 2 services, no one tells me. You know, like I'm
Who
a
touched the hem
fumbling
of my
idiot.
garment?
But at the same time, I want to foster and mature in the Holy Spirit prompting me to like, this person really needs a few more minutes. And by the way, we had time. It wasn't like I didn't, but I moved on. And so, just processing out loud.
No, I think it's a great testament of who you are that you would even speak of something so recent and even have the wherewithal of humility to say, I want to continue to grow in that. Because once again, judging from the outside in, you're in your 50s and you've lived some life and you have done the dance with all sorts of different types of people and major leaders and then college students. And so it's really encouraging for me to hear you say and speak with such vulnerability that I need to become more self-aware. I'm like, brother, I think you have a master's degree in self-awareness, but you can still grow in it.
You're incredibly gracious.
Well, I mean it.
But there's just so much about me where I'm just like, what the crap is wrong with me? Like, I am like, there's a guy who really wronged me. Like Jesus Juki wrong. That's the worst kind of wrong.
Yeah.
Where people like call it ministry.
Yep.
But it's like,
That
it
ain't.
too, Brudai. And I was just so wrong by this guy years ago. And then I recently found out that his marriage, his wife had an affair on him and everything. And I rejoiced in my, you know what I'm saying? I didn't say it out loud. I was a very professional Christian. I was like, that's horrible. But I got in my car and I was like, I was freaking right. There it is.
I feel vindicated. I feel like, justice.
And then I felt so the Lord is like, David, you're celebrating the season of his life that he's in. What would you want, like, and I'm just saying, I'm just confessing that to people listening, and that like we as Christians, we professional author, Christian, and whatever, all the stuff you said in the beginning that are all these assignments. They're not accomplishments. They're assignments God gives us.
Very good language.
And just because we've been assigned a book,
Yeah.
By the way, I talked about this one book sold to. I've written 5 books. Only one of them is sold. The other 4 have flopped completely.
Come on, man. It's not.
And, but I'm just saying to you, like,
none of mine sold.
None
so
of us.
that makes you feel better.
Not even when Kanye did the cover.
Not like yours.
But I want people to hear us to say, like, but by the grace of God go us. Like we don't have it figured out. And we have a lot of maturing to do. And we need patience as we give patience. But even as a Christian who I genuinely love God, there are just moments where like, am I even, I just literally thought, I was in the car, in my spirit, I was like, there it is. And then God was like, there's what, David? Are you rejoicing over the fact that this guy's heart, and I was like, yes, Lord. Yeah, I don't know if you ever feel, I feel like, man, and that's, I think, what I actually think is, I'm learning is that spiritual maturity is not like knowing more. Spiritual maturity is not like doing more. Spiritual maturity is actually when the things that didn't used to convict you start to convict you. Is awareness more.
Yeah.
Spiritual maturity is like when a year ago I would have just bowed up and said, I give everybody at my church my phone number. Like I give my cell phone number to every Liberty student. Everywhere I go, I give my phone number. That's a part of my thing. Bob Goff taught us live interrupted lives, so I've kind of exercised that thing for better and for worse. So I could bow up and go, I give everybody a number. I talked to 25 people Sunday.
Yep.
I went in the counseling room. And led someone to the Lord in the counseling room. No one even asked. Like I went over there and I saw her coming. I'd been praying for this. So I could give myself merit badges, but the truth of the matter is there's a sweet girl who went out of her way and I could have been more aware. And so spiritual maturity, if anything, is noticing your immaturity.
Yeah.
And not being okay with it. And wanting more godliness.
Yeah.
Because like when I'm quick to move on, that's actually a lack of God. That's a lack of God, because God never, it's the awareness of like, what's going on around me, or it's not rejoicing, It doesn't matter if someone was dishonorable. I still have to be honorable. It doesn't matter if someone was hurtful. I still would want healing for them, right? And so the more I go in my walk with God, the more I'm just aware of like myself, my depravity, and I'm not beating myself up.
Yeah.
I mean, hear me. I'm a man of God. Like, I'm not saying that as I'm a man of God because like I love God. I genuinely, but I'm a little bit like David, the other one, the OG.
Yep.
Like a man after his own heart, but a little me monster too. And awareness, I think, might actually be raising your awareness, understanding your depravity, the things that didn't bother you. Like,
very good.
Like, I go to a hotel room and I don't care that condensation is messing up that piece of furniture because it's not my furniture. When you start fine-tuning that, and you're like, why am I doing that? It doesn't matter that it's not my furniture.
Get that Christian coaster out there.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm a Christ follower.
And
Give
I know
me a
you're
coaster.
thinking that's what you're dealing with. No, I got bigger problems than that. I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
saying.
No, it's a great example.
When you start honing in on the little things, then you realize that things that didn't used to bother me start to bother me. The things that used to break the heart of God, that didn't used to break my heart, start to break my heart.
Yep.
And the things that make God happy make me happy. It goes right back to like, what can we be praying for right now for Iran? it doesn't matter that on your side of the ocean gas costs more if on that side of the ocean more people are coming to Christ. So the things that make God happy make me happy too. So like both things can be held at once. So that's to me where I need a lot of prayer, that I would grow in maturity and awareness, you know?
Yeah, I think as you're saying that, it's like maturing, you know, at some point graduating from the sin of commission to the sin of omission.
Let's go.
You know what I mean?
Let's go.
It's not really the,
Can you
the
explain
wrong.
that to your people?
Well, I think it's
Commission,
just
omission.
it's
Those
important.
Are 3-syllable words.
Right. And they rhyme and it sounds powerful. Well, just the things that we commit out of our flesh. But then I think there is a point of maturing that it's like, yo, I step into a category of sin that it might not be a sin for David, but it's the thing that I didn't do.
That's right.
That I was called to do.
That's right.
So quite frankly, if God's called you to walk around with dominion, having an owner's mentality, whether you walk into the hotel, whether you own it or not, going, hey,
That's right.
I have a spirit of excellence.
That's right.
And that doesn't just show up at my job or in my family. That shows up in this hotel room that I'm in right now. Why am I okay with somebody else's property being damaged on my watch when I have the wherewithal, the ability, the capacity, and the agency to solve it? Wait a minute. Now I'm being convicted.
That's right.
I should probably put a coaster. I'm not trying to freak somebody out right now.
100%.
But omission could just be things that I knew I was supposed to do. And I think maybe there is something to that about just maturing in the Lord that like, hopefully we're not living in this day. Man, I don't know if I can make it without another drink today. Like, I'm not trying to belittle that. I'm just saying, I think there's something towards my flesh that hopefully has been put into submission, but there's other things that the Holy Spirit's drawing me to do.
That's right.
That I'm omitting out of my life because of comfort,
That's
pleasure,
good,
or safety.
That's right. Exactly right.
And I think there's something to that.
That's so good, buddy. I needed that word.
Well, I love you. Should we go eat hummus somewhere?
I love you, bro.
Let's go find a.
I love me
let's
some
go
Rich
find.
Wilkerson.
Let's go find a Persian palace somewhere right now.
I'm so proud of you, man.
I love you.
Just watching the way you've grown and matured, and what you're doing it with Vu, and then the way you love people. And by the way, I told Golnush, she was at my church Sunday.
Yep.
She goes, "What are you doing this week?" When I mentioned you, she was like, "Oh,
Let's get her here.
She loves.
We're gonna call her. We're gonna FaceTime her.
So okay.
How does it sound in Farsi? How do you how do you say holy in Farsi? Do you know?
Richie de Wilkerson. I don't know. I don't even know.
Love you, friends. If you're still with us 2 hours and 17 minutes later,
Woo!
maybe just set a record. We could keep going. We're gonna. By the way, we're gonna turn the cameras off, but we're gonna keep going.
I love you.
We're so grateful that you guys are tuning in. This is David Nasser, and good friend, as you can already hear today. So much to offer, so much to share. Check out all of the books that he wrote, because only one sold, but the other 4 are just as important. They come right out of his heart. But see what he's doing on social media, all the things that he's doing. He's an amazing friend, an amazing leader and man. So we're grateful you're here. Leave us a comment. We love you guys, and we'll see you right here next time on Mature Me. Peace.
The world didn't give it, and the world can't take it away. There is an eternity that awaits all of us, that you were born to live.